Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Monday, May the 18th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Thank you for being here. We've got a good full crowd tonight. I'd like to welcome you. Madam Clerk will note that all commissioners are present, and I would ask you to silence your mobile devices, and I'll take that reminder myself. As you come to the podium tonight, please be sure that you press the button on the right. Be sure if you're speaking so that we can hear you and get a good YouTube recording. And just before we begin tonight, I want to express our condolences and acknowledge on behalf of the board the passing of former Western Piedmont Council of Government Board Chair and Maiden Mayor Bob Smyer. Bob dedicated nearly 38 years to public service and regional leadership in our community. So on behalf of the Burke County Board of Commissioners, we extend our condolences to his wife, Margot, and their family. And so also tonight, I want to take just a moment to welcome our new tax administrator, our tax administrator, Travis Isaac. Travis, if you'll stand up and wave there just for a moment. First day on the job, so go easy on him and give him time to get settled in. And also, we're glad to see our new clerk along in tandem with our associate down there, and Morgan Buchanan with us tonight on the platform. So thank you all for being here. Tonight, we're happy to have the Hickory, North Carolina stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to provide our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll ask their president, Chance Powell, to come and bring your group forward, and we'll have our invocation. And following the invocation, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's stand together, please.
Our beloved Father in heaven, we come before thee this beautiful evening in the event of gathering together in unity at this Burke County Board of Commissioners meeting. We pray for thy spirit to be upon us as we do so. We humbly bow before thee in humility this evening, Father, giving thee gratitude for the blessings and the gifts that we have received in our lives, for the beautiful freedoms which we enjoy, to be able to worship, to be able to live, and to be able to succeed and to prosper in the ways that we see fit by our choosing. We're grateful for this great land and this great county and for the citizens therein. Father, we pray for the family members of these leaders and administrators, for the burdens that sometimes fall upon their shoulders as they sustain and support their spouses. We pray, Father, for these leaders that they may be able to lead in humility with goodwill to all men, to be able to provide protection and guidance and help and care for the vulnerable and those in need. We pray that their hearts may be softened as we join together this evening, that they would be able to enact and abide into the laws that have been established in this land under moral principles that have been orchestrated and guided by thy Son, Jesus Christ. We are so very grateful again for these opportunities that we have to serve, and pray for a very special blessing to be upon its leaders and the citizens, that they may be able to act with moral principles and with understanding and with kindness. And most of all, Father, out of love of thee and love of thy children. We offer these things unto thee and dedicate this time to thee, and to thy glory and to thy honor, in the sacred and holy name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now if you'll just remain right here for a second, we want to come down and get a quick picture with you, okay? All right, this brings us to item 4 of our agenda tonight, approval of the agenda. And gentlemen, you've had the agenda, and we'll note that we have had a request to remove decision item number 2, appointment and removal from Department of Self-Management Board, to deal with that at a later date. So with that noted change, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the agenda with the amendments stated.
Those in favor signify by the hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Brings us to item 5, approval of meeting minutes. Gentlemen, tonight we have Board of Commissioner approval of meeting minutes for the February 4th, 2026 special meeting. We have those to review. If there are no additions or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 4th, 2026 special meeting as written.
Thank you, Commissioner Barry. All those in favor signify by the hand. 5-0. We have a number of presentations tonight. First item on our presentation agenda comes from the sheriff. Resolution authorizing the county issue service sidearm and badge and presentation. Good evening, Sheriff. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing presentations.
Good evening, gentlemen, Madam Clerks. Tonight the Sheriff's Office is celebrating 3 situations, and one would be the retirement of Lieutenant Tom Hester. Tom, if you and your son Jack would come up. So, Lieutenant Tom Hester retired, served with the United States Navy, starting in 1994 through 1997 on the USS Constellation. He served as a flight deck, on the flight deck as a crash crewman. After he finished his service with the Navy, he went to Gardner-Webb University, and in 2004, he graduated with a bachelor's in criminal justice. He began his career at the Burke County Sheriff's Office in May of 2006 as a detention officer. He was promoted to deputy within the patrol division and later was promoted as a DARE officer. In June of 2007, he was promoted to investigator in the narcotics division, which he served until November of 2011. On March 2015, he was promoted to sergeant in the Narcotics Division, and then he transferred to the Civil Process Division in May of 2017. He was promoted to lieutenant of the Civil Process Division in 2021, where he remained in that position until he retired on May 31st, or will be retiring May 31st, 2026. According to North Carolina General Statute 2187.2A, the Burke County Sheriff's Office is authorized to surplus that service weapon and present that to him at his retirement. We are asking that you all approve that so we can award that firearm to him at his retirement.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Gentlemen, you've heard this information, and we have,
We have two more.
yes, sir, we've got this.
Do one at a time.
We've got this resolution set up for both, so if you don't mind, let's go ahead and make all your recognitions, then we'll
Okay.
vote on the resolution.
We're also doing the same thing for Sergeant Sam Crump, who began his law enforcement career with the Burke County Sheriff's Office August 1999 as a detention officer. And in 2003, he was promoted to jail sergeant. While employed at the Burke County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Crump attended McDowell Community College, where he earned his basic law enforcement certification. He continued serving the jail until August 2007, or August 2007, and was promoted to deputy sheriff in the Patrol Division. On August 2012, Sergeant Crump was promoted to sergeant within the Patrol Division. He was promoted to warrant sergeant, where he faithfully served until his retirement, March 31st, 2026. He could not be here this evening, but same thing according to North Carolina General Statute and Burke County Sheriff's Office Departmental Policy, we're asking that you all surplus that weapon.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Well, let's give these guys a great hand for all the work. We appreciate your service to our community and to our county. And gentlemen, you've heard this information. You have in front of you Resolution 2026-13. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adopt resolution number 2026-13.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Madam Clerk. Again, thank you all very much for being here tonight. I would be happy to get a picture. You got one more thing, don't you, Sheriff?
I do.
Okay, let's do that. We'll get a picture with everybody, okay?
So tonight we're celebrating Lieutenant Clint Lale. Clint, if you will step up with your family. He's joined tonight by his wife, Hannah, his son, Michael, his father-in-law, Chris, his mother-in-law, Laura, and his sister-in-law, Lee. A lot of support there. Of course, with law enforcement officers, you definitely need support at home, and I don't know how people do it without the support of their families. So Lieutenant Clint Lale was awarded the prestigious law enforcement certificate, the Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate from the North Carolina Education Training Standards Commission. This certificate is awarded based on years of service, continuing education, and formal education. He recently also obtained his criminal investigation certificate from the North Carolina Justice Academy. That is also awarded based on training education points. He began his career at the Burke County Sheriff's Office in November 2021, assigned as a deputy in the Patrol Division. In July 2022, he was promoted to detective in the Narcotics Division. In May of 2024, he was promoted to Patrol Sergeant. November 2025, he was promoted to Patrol Lieutenant in a position that he currently holds, and does a fantastic job there. We're very proud of Lieutenant Lale. We stole him from Oregon Department of Public Safety, so that was good. It's always good to get one like that. So I would like to present that certificate. And it says, one cool thing about this certificate is I serve as a District 9 Commissioner. I represent 10 sheriffs, and my signature is on this certificate awarded from North Carolina Department of Justice. So that's kind of cool to be able to serve in that capacity. Very proud of Clint. Thank you, Clint. Appreciate it.
All right. Again, thank you for your service to our county and our community. And if you and your family come around this way, we're going to come down and get a picture. I think Lieutenant Hester decided he had all this he wanted. So he may not get with the picture.
Are you guys maybe restaurant? Okay. I'm not free about it. Thank you.
All right, again, thank you, Sheriff. This brings us to item number 2, coming from the commission tonight. Recognition of the United Way of Burke County for its 70th year anniversary. And we've got a number of folks with the United Way with us tonight. Board President Cindy Davies will be accepting the proclamation. Other United Way members will also be in attendance. I see several right in here. And I can't see Mo now, but I saw her earlier. There she is. Stand up. We will recognize all those in just a moment. Carry on.
Thank you. We are just so thankful to Burke County for your support of our 70th anniversary recognition. We also want to thank our long history of staff members, volunteers, board members, and of course our generous donors over the years who have supported the United Way. And we look forward to, with your help, supporting more families in Burke County over the next 70 years. So thank you again.
All right. Thank you very much. And we do have a proclamation number 202607 that recognizes those efforts. And gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to accept that proclamation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Stroud. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. That's 5-0. And all you Burke County United Way folks, come down here again. Let's get a quick picture, okay? While they're coming, I want to say it's been my joy to support the United Way for many years, and I really appreciate all the effort and work that this group does to look after our folks here in Burke County. Thank you. Okay, we're still recognizing. We got another recognition coming. This comes from Burke County Chamber of Commerce, recognition of winners from the BIG Big Challenge. This is going to be presented tonight by Tanya Stevenson, president of our chamber. Evening, Tanya.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Manager, Attorney, and Madam Clerks. Appreciate the opportunity to recognize our folks tonight. We are excited that we have finished the BIG Challenge, and the BIG stands for the Burke Impact Groups Challenge. So for the past 4 years, we proudly organized a community litter sweep for our community, but this year we wanted to expand it to be able to include anyone in our community who genuinely wants to do good. However, not everyone is physically able to be out there and picking up litter, and others feel called to serve in different ways. So we also discovered that the effort was limited to a single week, and that many people were willing to participate, but they simply weren't available due to vacations, business demands, or scheduling conflicts. So this year, after thoughtful discussion, we expanded and enhanced the litter sweep into something bigger and more inclusive, the Big Challenge, and it ran through the entire month of April. We held a celebration for all these winners on May 5th out at Murphy's Farm to recognize their great efforts. Thank you, Commissioner Stroud, for being with us that night. And we're excited to recognize them again tonight. I think they're all here but one, maybe. So this expanded format allowed us more people to participate in ways that match their abilities, interests, and schedules, but we still welcomed and encouraged the traditional litter sweep, which we had lots of to do that. As we invited groups to make an impact in our community in meaningful ways, we had projects that included but not limited to sewing hats for cancer patients, working on a habitat house, lots of litter sweeps, serving communities in the harder hit areas of Helene, building a ramp, and much, much more. And I would love to be able to recognize the awards that we have recognized on May 5th and have them come up and be recognized by you as well, if that's still okay, Mr. Chairman. We presented the Keep Burke Beautiful Award, which was awarded to a team whose efforts went above and beyond in cleaning up our community and preserving the beauty of Burke County. This was awarded to Waiting for the Train. So I think we have some Waiting for the Train guys. Y'all want to come join us? The Visionary Award was awarded to the team that demonstrated outstanding creativity by turning bold and creative ideas into meaningful impact for the community. This was awarded to multiple groups that got together for the Storybook Trail at Royal Park. They raised over $6,000 for the park in Hildebrand. So anybody with that group, come on up. And I have to say, a few of these folks was in multiple teams, so they worked really hard. Like Beth Holly might be one of those. We gave away the Impact of Action Award. We awarded it to the team that showed exceptional dedication by completing the highest number of projects and turning plans into action. That was awarded to Burke River Trails. So let's give them a round. Last but not least, I haven't seen anybody here from there, so if they're here, come on up. But awarded to the team whose efforts made the greatest difference by reaching and impacting the most people in our community, and we awarded that to Texas Fish Camp. Anybody here? So the goal of the BIG Big Challenge was simple: to give everyone in Burke County an opportunity to make a difference, to ensure that every act of service, whether large or small, is seen, valued, and celebrated, and we certainly did celebrate. We are excited about the broader reach this initiative has afforded our community, and I want to thank you, Commissioners, for all your support, proclaiming April the BIG Challenge Month, and for all you do to support our efforts of the great people of Burke County and all the big things that we do together. So thank you guys for your time. Yeah. And Mike was a litter getter too. Mike Stroud was. Yeah, Mike was. That's right. Looks good.
Okay, I think that all the photography worthy events are over now. And we're coming to, so how should we describe these next presentations? We've got a presentation coming from our economic development folks. We're glad to see Brandon Roop, who's been on the job, about a month or so. And Brandon, we look forward to hearing your report tonight. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Britton. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come out here and give a presentation, and I agree that all the photography-worthy things have been taken up. I've not been known to be very photogenic, so. But my goal tonight is to explain a little bit about what Burke Development Incorporated is, what we do, how we do it, what, where, who, why, all those fun questions, a little bit of a look what's in the future. As you alluded to, I've been here a month and a half. I don't have any super groundbreaking revelations. Talk a little bit about how economic development works, and those fun things. Sorry, clicker. Found it. Let's see. How does this work? All right. So Burke Development Incorporated, our main goal was to strive to create economic opportunity for Burke County, right? We do that mainly through, to sum it up in 2 words, job creation is the main goal with, and deepening the tax base, reducing the burdens of citizens, right? So, and we do this largely by leveraging industrial development. BDI is a public-private partnership structured as a nonprofit. It is the best practice to structure an economic development organization in this manner. The board is made up by both public and private sector members of the community, giving a nice representation. And these are the current board members, but I always like to point out that they ran a capital campaign a few years ago and recruited over 50 or donations from over 50 private donors within the community, right? So there's a lot of community buy-in into this mission, what Burke Development does. Our partners are not just local, right? We have a lot of state level partners, the North Carolina Department of Commerce Economic Development Partnership in North Carolina being main ones, or huge ones, but we also have large utility partners. Several other partners are all bought into this mission of economic development throughout the state. Our goal as a local EDO is to be the conduit and first point of contact for these industries and facilitate their entry into our community. There's a saying in economic development that all boats rise on the same tide, and our partners at both the local and state level are committed to that goal. So before going too much farther into BDI, I want to talk just a little bit about me and my entry into the community here. So my background before economic development was largely labor and workforce development. Did that for the longest stretch of my career for the Foothills Regional Commission, which is a COG that covers Council of Governments that covers Rutherford, Cleveland, McDowell, Polk County. And I managed manufacturing relationships for that board in that region. And through that process, I learned the value of manufacturing and what made our region competitive for that manufacturing investment. And because I understood that value proposition, I was recruited into around 2021 into Cleveland County's Economic Development Partnership, and then worked through there in the city of Shelby doing economic development. And in that time, since 2021, I led projects that led to about $800 million of capital investments over creation of about 600 new jobs, the most recent of which was the sale of a publicly owned shell building that Cleveland County and Shelby partnered together to build, recruited PPG's aerospace division. There in May of last year, about $380 million in new capital investment and 110 jobs. So it was a pretty fun project to work. It took a long time, but it was well worth it in the end. And people ask me a lot, both here locally and across my partners throughout the state, is, why Burke County? Why make the move to Burke County? And that is a great question. And I got to tell you, it's largely because this community is set up for success in terms of product availability, utility capacity. The partnerships here are just unparalleled, really. And then you've got phenomenal workforce assets, which I care about greatly. But again, it's measured by the opportunity has been set up by years of thoughtful and wise investments, largely made by this board and several other partners within the community to set the community up for success in economic development. So basically, I'm excited to win is how that goes. Yeah. A little bit here about Burke County as a community. Manufacturing is the bulk of the economy. It is the backbone. 22% of the people here in Burke County work in manufacturing. That is the largest sector by far. It makes up 33% of the gross domestic product. You see here, there's a little typo on my little 67%. We'll get back to that in a second, that number there. And BDI in that regards, in terms of manufacturing growth, has recruited since 2015 about over 2,000 new jobs, created about $360 million of new capital investment. And again, that's largely, again, manufacturing. That is manufacturing investment within the community. I like to point out here, this is where we get back to that 67%, that the majority of that was existing industry and expansions, right? So these businesses are here in your community already. They like doing business here. This is the ultimate priority of economic development. You have to support what's already here. These companies like doing business in your community. And as the number shows, 67% of them said, yes, we like Burke County and we want to grow here. So that's where the bulk of any economic development organization will tell you, that's where the bulk of jobs and wages and capital investment comes from. And so we've talked about a lot about industrial development and manufacturing. And so the common question in this field is, why manufacturing? And that's because in the world of economic development, it has what we call the highest economic multiplier, right? So manufacturing companies tend to buy a lot of really nice, expensive equipment, which the county and other local governments can levy nice taxes on, right? And they generate high tax revenue providers, which means we can keep taxes for citizens low. Same is true utilities. You get a large utility user paying a large bill for local utility companies, right? Keep utility rates low. And then most importantly, and why this is such a public impetus, right, is that they create high number of jobs with high wages typically and most of the time with benefits, right? So, and to that end, you see the average manufacturing worker wage in Burke County is about $55,000+ a year for a worker, single worker. The median household income, according to the Department of Commerce, which is the metric we're measured by, is $49,020. So that's the household income, average household income, median household income. And the average manufacturing worker's job is making $55,000, right? These are sustainable jobs that pay high wages and have benefits, right? And that's really what drives, right? And so, always we get asked, well, that's great, but we want Target. Where's Target? Brandon, why haven't you recruited a Target yet? And the reality of it is retail is entirely metric driven, right? They only care about rooftops, right? They care about traffic counts. They care about population. They care about those household income demographics, right? Those are what drives retail investment. If you don't have those things, they're not coming. Doesn't matter what you do. I can't woo them. But again, right, recruiting manufacturing directly impacts each one of those metrics that retailers care about. So indirectly, you're building the economy up to make yourself more attractive for that retail investment. Again, has the highest economic multiplier. And again, if you think about retail from a jobs and wages perspective, they don't move the socioeconomic needle, right? A lot of those jobs are lower paying. There's not benefits. They're part-time. They don't move that socioeconomic needle the same way that manufacturing investment does. So, and again, I told you I have a workforce and labor background, so I tend to like to look at things through this lens. And this is a little bit about what, it's a little bit more personal for me about what drives my passion for economic development. A lot of times, people say economic development is growth, and that's true. But, really, the way I like to look at growth is it's more in terms of retention, right? So if we look here at the unemployment history, right? So we got throughout the 90s, right? We had furniture here, low unemployment, economy was booming. Everybody loves the furniture days. NAFTA happened in 1994, and you can see a spike there in 1994. And then, again, it goes up all the way through the early 2000s. And then on top of, we were really already in a recession because of NAFTA and the globalization of the economy and the loss of those manufacturing jobs. And then the Great Recession happened, right? And so then we skyrocket to over around 16% unemployment, right? That's when the economy was in really dire straits. And we see, you can kind of see that it looks like the needle, right? The unemployment rate drops, and unemployment rate is tracking how many people are actively seeking work. And the reality of it is, no one had that much new investment coming on around that time. A lot of those people just gave up looking for jobs, right? It's kind of sad. And that had a generational impact on all of our communities. You can see Burke County during that time, right there, Burke County for a community of our size has a below average number of millennials for a community of our size benchmark across the U.S. You know, and I think the paper wrote a pretty decent article about the aging population demographic of Burke County recently, and this is why. During that period of time when we had high unemployment, right, that's when the millennial generation was graduating high school, or a lot of them, and so they were unable to find jobs in this community or our region and left. You know, I always like to say I had 5 friends in high school. Let's not look into how popular I was in high school. Me and one other are the only ones still here, right? The other ones are Boston, Charlotte, right? They didn't stay here to work and live here. And again, this is what drives my passion for this job, right? I want my children to grow up here. I want them to have an opportunity to stay here and live here, and they can't do that unless we're creating opportunities for them to do so. So again, when we're talking about growth, we're not talking about becoming a bedroom community for a larger metro. We're talking about enough growth to provide opportunities for the next generation, or we will lose them, and we have in the past. So that's what, on a personal note, what drives my passion for this business. So then I always like to, when I'm in a public setting, try to demystify economic development and how the business works here a little bit, right? So it surprises people to know that, you know, people always ask, how did these companies find out about Burke County or Morganton or any of the other smaller municipalities within the community? How did these Fortune 500 companies find out about our town? And the answer is not me sitting on the phone calling Tesla all day. That's not how it works. It's a lot more structured than people realize. So these companies, when they're looking to locate, they spend a lot of time developing what we call critical locating factors. These are the drivers for their business, right? They're looking at access to supply chain. Where are our customers? Where are our suppliers? You know, it's very analytical and methodical in their approach. And then they take those critical locating factors and they typically take it out to a region, right? So maybe they'll say the Southeast United States and Europe, right? And then they take it down farther. Well, maybe it's North, South Carolina, Georgia, and Germany, and a couple other countries, and they keep narrowing it down, right, until they come out to, until they figure out what states they want to locate in. And this is, then they don't call us still yet at this point, right? This has been a year's worth of work before they ever even come to the state of North Carolina, right? And they say, okay, we've identified North Carolina as a possible state for our investment. You're competing against 2 other countries and 5 other states. So then North Carolina then sends it to us at the county level, right? And then we submit sites. Counties all across North Carolina and all those other states submit sites. If our site meets that company's requirements, and then they continue to funnel it down until they find a couple of finalist locations, and that's where things get fun, when you're in the final runner-up for those. But it's a very methodical, long process. By the time they've even reached out to the state of North Carolina, they've had a year's worth of work. By the time they come to us, they've maybe had almost 2 years worth of work going into that. So there's a lot of thought that goes behind these. They're not fly-by-night decisions. They're usually typically very well thought out. And so that begs the question, what do companies want? What kind of real estate opportunities are they looking for? And so this is a report that the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina releases every year. This is the real estate requirements for companies looking to locate within the state. This is only new projects. This doesn't represent existing industry, which the state also supports. But you can see that the majority, over half of the state's projects last year wanted a building, right? And then you can see here that some of them wanted a building or a site. And I tell you, in my experience, that means we'll take a site if we have to. We want a building, right? So really, 70% of your companies are looking for an existing building, because in the world of manufacturing, it's speed to market. If you're not producing a product, you're not making money. And if you're not making money, then that's risk, right? So all risk mitigation is about speed to market, getting into production as soon as possible. Buildings aid in that. And so in terms of what size buildings they're looking for, typically looking in that 50 to 100,000, 200,000 square foot range here. That's where you're casting the widest net. This company's looking at the square footage here. And again, why did I choose Burke County? Well, let's wait a second. Here we go. Let's skip. Got ahead of myself. Again, here's what we're seeing at the local level, right? We're tracking our RFIs that we received for 2026. Again, buildings, that's what we're getting, and they're all in that 300,000 square foot range, right? That's the biggest chunk of them. So buildings are the driver. And again, Alachis, Burke County, you guys are building one. That's awesome. You know, you guys made that right investment building that building. That is a very attractive piece of product that will allow us to be pretty aggressive in recruiting. And again, what's nice is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. You guys have a lot of phenomenal product all throughout the county, and you know, Drexel, I think, catches about everything else that the Burke Business Park doesn't. And then again, there's a lot of additional product here. I think these are the two premier sites in the county. But there's so much product in Burke County, it's almost hard to wrap my head around. And then again, incredible utility capacities at all these locations, which is a huge thing for manufacturers. So, what's next? So some of the goals that the board and BDI is setting for me and the organization is that we are laying out a strategic plan, and that's going to be a pretty long formal process to really ensure that BDI is aligning itself with community objectives, right? We want to make sure that the type of growth and development that we're bringing is aligning with community objectives. And then, of course, we want to line out what that strategy looks like, right? Well, how are we going to market ourselves? How are we going to set ourselves apart? How are we going to ensure that we're successful in meeting the workforce requirements and all the other things? So we're going to be working on that. It's going to be a huge goal of our organization. We are going to, again, you guys, the county partners have done a phenomenal job of setting up that product, right? So now we've got to sell it. So we're going to make a big push in marketing, really pushing these sites and making a big effort to generate as many leads as possible. And then in the meantime of that, we're going to continue actively working projects, right? We're not going to stop working projects where we come up with a strategic plan, right? We're going to keep moving, trying to sell these sites. Last year, BDI had about 10 site visits, more or less, in 2025. This year, before I got here, they'd already done 3. I've done 1 since I've been here, and we've got 4 scheduled just for the rest of this month. So again, as we get closer to this product being completed, we're going to start seeing a lot more of these leads, a lot more of these companies generating a lot more interest, and we're going to start showing them a lot more, and hopefully, right, that leads to a sale. So in an announcement, ribbon cutting, right? That's what we all want, right? Yeah, that's right. And then the other thing that I'm going to make sure that's a goal of mine and a goal of BDI's is to, again, even with the strategic plan and even outside of that, continue to engage with the community, right? I'm going to try to get as front of as many folks as I can. This is actually the second one I've done. I presented to Rotary before you guys, so beat you to the punch. But I'm going to try to get in front of as many folks as I can to talk about economic development, engaging with the presentation similar to this one. And again, really trying to go to as many public meetings and community events as I can, engaging with those. And as a part of that, I'd really like to let the board consider a quarterly report from BDI. Like come back maybe once a quarter, give a report to BDI. We'll arrange that with the Mr. Manager and clerk to the board. But I think that would be important, and we're striving to do that with most of the municipalities and other investors within the organization. These reporting, being public facing, and engaging with the community. So, yeah, I think that wraps it up for me.
All right. Thank you, Brendan. And we look forward to bringing the cameras out for some of those new ribbon cuttings and projects that come to fruition here in Burke County. Gentlemen, you've heard this report. Any questions for Brendan? See. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, Brandon, first of all, welcome. Thanks. Really excited about you being really open and meeting the citizens. And, you know, I think that's really what's going to put us way ahead of the game is everybody engaged collectively as a group and as a whole. And that's what we're pushing. And we're seeing that from every angle. Citizens are getting involved and you making people involved with what's going on. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Other questions, comments? All right. Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion to accept this report as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Item number 5 comes from our county manager, presentation of recommended budget for fiscal year 26-27 and scheduling of public hearing. This will be presented by our county manager, Mr. Brian Epley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I tremendous amount of information to cover this evening, and I appreciate everybody's willingness to work through that. We've delivered to each of you a budget notebook that really walks through the process that we've been working on collectively over the last 6 months, starting with your strategic plan, which drives all the policy and all the resource allocation that we work on. And I'm excited, again, tremendous amount of information. I'm going to try to move very quickly. Happy to stop if you have questions. But I do think it's critical, and I know it's a priority to this board to make sure that we thoroughly cover the utilization of public resources and the recommended budget for the upcoming 26-27 fiscal year. I'd certainly like to thank all of our department heads who've had a big part in this. As you all know, we've worked tremendously over the last 3 years on building a strong a culture of high performance in Burke County, and high performance, it can be defined in many ways. But for us, it's maximizing resource allocation, trying to have measured outcomes, have discipline and accountability. And certainly this budget was a true test of that. Across North Carolina, there is a series of what I'll call financial and operational disruptions, and they're impacting all 100 counties, not just Burke County. A quick Google search will show you some of the challenges that other folks are navigating through, and we're not immune from that. This time a year ago, we were talking about uncertainty in the budget coming off of the a level 1 natural disaster that's a $5 billion issue in Western North Carolina, and we were one of those counties. And what that recovery effort may look like, the long-term recovery economically, the physical recovery, managing hazard mitigation, how will sales tax and occupancy tax and some of those economic components perform. And this year, the uncertainty has been more about what are the external factors and primarily federal and state policy components that really have a trickle-down effect to here in Burke County, and how can we as a team work through those. And I'll tell you, it was a true test. I couldn't be more proud of the leadership from our board of commissioners. I couldn't be more proud of the effort from our department heads and our budget team, because I think that as I prepared for the draft that's in front of you and for consideration, I tried to always give our budget a theme. And this year, for our 26-27 proposed budget, the theme was managing disruption. As you guys are all aware, we have a very central organizational purpose of improving lives for the citizens of Burke County. Lots of ways we can do that with public policy and public resources. But I think we have a plan that's investing in public safety, that's investing in education, workforce, and economic development, and things that really will have a transformative impact. And we have to stay committed to that plan. So as I explained to our leadership team here in the county, we don't want to be the plane who took off and hit a patch of turbulence and turned around and landed. We want to fly through the turbulence, understanding that the destination is where we're trying to go. And the budget is really just a tool to help us enact those components. So what you'll see, given this environment, is a budget that's a very stabilizing budget. There's no new programs, there's no new policies, there's no new dynamic projects. This budget doesn't add any headcount, no new employees. But that doesn't mean that it's not a very robust effort and a very useful tool that continues to incrementally advance the Board of Commissioners strategic plan. Just to give you some of the examples of the things that I'll outline during this presentation, and I'll pick up the pace just a bit. Every business in the world is still dealing with inflationary pressure, contracted services. We here, part of our business model is obviously working in a human services aspect. And so we've seen significant changes in the foster care arena. There's been legislative changes, there's been contracting changes at the state, and all of these things. And if you look at the flow chart, that's kind of the optic there, I would consider external forces. State treasurer, pension escalation, healthcare costs, labor market competition, HR 1, which is House Reconciliation 1, also known as the Big Beautiful Bill. Again, a congressional act in Washington, D.C. that likely had a lot of very positive federal policy impacts, but there's a trickle-down effect to the local level that puts additional pressure on our property tax rate. We've seen some Medicaid changes at a state level. Certainly there's some interest rate uncertainty, and we continue to work through this Hurricane Helene recovery effort, which staff continue to work on every day, every single day, including today. As we've navigated through now proposing the fourth budget since I've been in Burke County, and we're coming off of the heels of an organization that lacked clarity and vision and purpose, and had no capital improvement plan, some dilapidated infrastructure, organizational turnover over 30%. We implemented this change administrative plan of react, rebuild, and rethink, which we've talked about many times, where we've stabilized, then rebuilt strong foundations, and now we're really challenging the norm of how do we do government differently. And I would say the 26-27 budget is hyper-focused on really doing the basics. And that's the rethink framework that we're how do we do the things we're already doing, but doing with operational excellence? How do we fine tune that just a shot and improve it? The things that are going well, commitment to the plan. And I think sometimes it's easy to get wrapped up in super advanced things, but this budget, I think, really just hones in on those basics. And really the basics are these systems of culture, operating systems, and ultimately impact on the community, because that's what impacting lives is all about. Clearly, there's a filtration process. Priorities always outpace resources. We completed last Thursday, our second Citizens Academy. During week one of that program, and some of those folks were here this evening, we do a budget exercise where there's all these competing priorities with a very limited, finite amount of resources, and it becomes a real challenge. And so your strategic plan is really what helps us navigate through that and prioritize appropriately. When we talk about doing the basics at a high level, what we mean is we want to have a budget that's structurally balanced. We want to have fund balance or equity discipline. There's an appropriate time to use equity. There's an appropriate time to build equity. And we've got to really fine tune when that is. Debt management, very simple examples. 2 years ago, in your work session, you gave staff, out of 4 options, this board gave staff direction for a adaptive reuse project at our Health and Human Services building. And that vision and that wisdom has now paid incredible dividends, given the economic uncertainty we've had in the last 2 years, so that project can continue moving forward. We're taking a hard look at everything having a measured return on investment. There's a lot more repair in our mindset than replace, given the escalation cost. We've delayed substantial capital. You'll see that with some of the new costs. We focus hard on revenue diversification, which takes pressure off the property tax rate. And this year, the recommended budget, and I'll show you in just a moment, has a property tax dependency of about 52.5%, which is one of the lowest, down substantially since from 3 years ago, but one of the lowest in our region. So just go through this quickly. But what does financial fundamentals mean to me? And you can see some of here being really. I mentioned fund balance and debt, but also cost containment. We want to make sure that we are competitive, but paying sustainable wages. We've made such leaps and bounds. I appreciated the sheriff saying the sheriff's office was able to recruit somebody from a sister agency that now has an advanced law enforcement degree. That is a big deal, and we're seeing that all across Burke County government. Right now, we have a 5% vacancy rate, a 9% turnover, 4.5% if you calendar year January through April. It's some of the strongest human capital indicators this organization's ever seen, and I believe that is our people are the tip of the spear, and that's a leader in our performance improvement areas. Core service things like public education, public safety. We're not looking for new things to do. We want to be disciplined in our capital, understanding that cash flow is king, and that sometimes takes precedent over some type of replacement schedule. And then lastly, reengineering, which is part of that rethink. And we know that we've this board's leadership and really innovative ideas, I think, from staff over the last couple of years have generated somewhere in the $7 or $8 million of reengineering budget flexibility, either through cost avoidance or new revenue streams, or just existing revenue maximization. We'll talk about some of those strategies, but I think those have been critical to executing on your strategic plan, which moving into 26-27 has the same 5 focus areas coming out of your March retreat, your March workshop, where you set priorities, and certainly there was an ample amount of those. I've broken those down here from your highest priorities to your core priorities based on level of emphasis from the board commissioners. Economic development was the top priority, the only priority that had had 6 dots from 5 commissioners. MSW cell conversion at our solid waste facility, the Indian Hills Pump Station in Eastern Burke County, which is such an impact on housing and economic development. core to our goal as being an employer of choice. And then also continuing to work on our enterprise funds. So I'll start, Mr. Chairman, by jumping in and saying the reason I think we need to stay committed to the plan is because we've made some really critical and key investments over the last 3 budgets, heading into my 4th budget, that I think have made some substantial improvements, and I'll point those out. I mentioned human capital, 5% roughly vacancy rate, 38 open positions out of roughly 700. Public safety vacancy, which has a huge impact on morale and response rates and turnover and burnout. All very, very good. But even across all of county government, we're able to string together and build some tenure, which I think helps bolden our culture and really help pursue that idea of high performance. This is just some of our public safety indicators. Dispatch delay 911 down substantially. EMS response time from over 10 minutes to a tick under 8. And you can see what that, we all know, we've talked about this following your public safety strategic planning process, that responsiveness in emergency services leads to better outcome. We've almost doubled the number of commercial fire inspection rates. Poisoning and overdose deaths are down month over month to some of our lowest levels that we've seen in quite some time. Both our solid waste and our enterprise fund, after multiple years of operating in a deficit, which again puts pressure on the property tax rate. And the biggest problem with enterprise funds that don't self-sustain is it puts pressure on the property tax rate, which everyone pays, when the utility only serves a unique customer group. So it is truly an inequitable use of resources. So really, really proud of the team for being able to work on some of that and get it improved. While maintaining a solid unassigned fund balance. I would remind you this board has a policy of 25%. We have this 1-year temporary dip because of the FEMA public assistance process, about $11.5 million from the general fund that had to go through that process. Most of that's been recouped. So our goal is to have that fully reimbursed by June 30th, and I expect that number will rebound to over your policy. Other just deliverables that demonstrate impact on the plan. This is from our environmental health focus. At one time we had 12, 13 week turnaround time for on-site septic inspections. That's now below 30 days. You can see the number of inspections we've done for food and lodging as well as on-site. And then you have a fully engaged capital improvement plan that I think we can all speak with confidence that the county's infrastructure is in a solid place. It's in a sustainable place. There's no high urgency, unmet needs. And we're able to do accurate forecasting for out-year capital and try to flatline that so that it doesn't have the volatility that sometimes further disrupts budget development. We've done all that while reducing the tax rate twice in a 3-year period. Currently 55.5 cents. The FY26-27 budget is recommended with an unchanged tax rate at 55.5 cents. So again, this idea of managing this temporary disruptions while we stay committed to the plan is really because I think that we're well suited to make an impact positively on the people who live in Burke County, and we're in a good spot. Doesn't mean that we're not without challenges, and I'll start there. Really, when you look at this year, things that are outside of our control, if I just assign numerical value to them in dollars, just as an example, Burke County, like all counties in North Carolina, participates in the local government employee retirement system, otherwise known as Eldridge, which is managed by the state treasurer's office, and there's a board, and we have required contribution rates. They're increasing by about 1% this year. That's about a $400,000 cost. I mentioned the big beautiful bill, and we'll talk about that more later. But there's a federal revenue reduction of about $550,000. That's about $68 million across the state, but the Burke County impact's about $550,000. So again, impacting all 100 counties. Following on the heels of what I believe was Medicaid expansion and managed care transformation, Medicaid transformation back in 2021, and then expansion in 2023, we've seen an explosion of state paid Medicaid claims. And not to get too far in the weeds, but there's a revenue that we've received really for almost 15 years that was called Medicaid Hold Harmless, and because of an explosion in Medicaid state paid claims, that will be retracted moving forward. That's about $1 million loss of an unrestricted revenue source. To put it in perspective, that's about 1 cent on the tax rate, that one revenue source. Microsoft Enterprise, that's an example of a contracted service We use Microsoft Enterprise for email, PowerPoint, Excel, Word. This is not a fancy system. This is a basic, doing the basics, right? But our cost is going up about 14%, roughly $100,000 just to maintain that. PAP is a public ambulance provider. That's an audit the state makes you do if you're an ambulance provider. Foster kinship placements, that's foster care and kinship placements, not just foster care. A variety of changes there that we've really seen an escalation in congregate care, group placement that's driven foster care cost up. And then healthcare inflation. So when you add all those together, somewhere about $3.9 million of what I would consider budget challenges to start the process, which is roughly 4 cents on our property tax rate. So let's talk about the development process. I'm very proud of this board. I'm very proud to be a part of the small part of the team. We've really, I think, created a culture where budget is ongoing. We work on drafting January through June. And then July through December, we work on implementation and measurement, and we start that cycle over. And it's really a fluid, never-ending exercise. I think that helps us have a little bit more of a surgical, precise tool and process. And that's really what's happened over the last 6 months. We started off in January and February with some analytics and revenue forecasting. That March 5th work session is where we get so much direction from you all on the policy areas that you want us to try to invest in. And we also, I think it's important to say, two things that are carried forward in the 26-27 budget that are critical to our core. One, we draft the revenue side of the budget first, and that is how we make sure we have spending constraint in the spend plan. Oftentimes in the public sector, you'll see a spend plan drafted, and then a budget revenue budget drafted, and then you hear we have a shortfall. Well, if you draft the revenue side first and then marry your spend plan to the revenue side, that's impossible because you're constrained by your available resources. That's one thing that we do. And the second thing that we do, and there's a resolution this board's going to consider later in the meeting, is that we do not do incremental based budgeting where we take last year's and add 3% to it. Everything starts from zero. It's brick and mortar, one brick at a time. And that doesn't mean costs don't compound. They do compound. But in your budget notebook, and certainly in our working draft efforts, we build every dollar and every cent from a quantity and a cost, which just makes sure that we don't get caught in the inertia of just building a budget over and over. On the revenue side, there are lots of reasons to be optimistic. We have seen continued investment and development. These are just some optics out of our local real estate MLS system. And they really show two things. One, we have a housing crisis, which I know that we're working on, but two, the development market is continuing to show some signs of energy. As a matter of fact, in 2025, just for non-incorporated building single-family home permits in Burke County, we grew from 251 by about 60% to 401, which was, I think, the single largest number this county has ever seen. And that's just one good, I think, indicator that people are investing in the economy. We've been able to maintain a steady unemployment rate. Brandon mentioned earlier that labor force participation is a component of that calculation, but we've been steady there. We're a little bit lower than the federal and state average, but that's consistent here for Burke County. And another good indicator that we're not seeing layoffs and we're not seeing some of the challenges. Our manufacturing is 35% of our total GDP, and this is a good predictive analytic if we're again trying to approach the budget from a revenue side with some type of forecast about how our total economy is performing. This is a supply chain management for purchasing and raw material, and the ability for manufacturing firms to obtain raw materials. And the general takeaway is here: if it's above 50 in your community, your manufacturing sector is in an expansion period. If it's below 50, you should be worried about jobs and investment. And what I can see here is our manufacturers are continuing to invest. That's good since we have a shell building that we're working on, but it's also a good indicator that they're all doing well, and it gives us confidence in our revenue forecasting. To say that, we still did it with a very responsible recession-ready approach. There's a tremendous amount of geopolitical components that go into the economy that we simply can't control, but we have to be I think responsible to consider. We've relied on data, and we've tried to rethink our revenue portfolio draft I'll mention this. This is the first time since I've worked in Burke County that we've had a what I would call natural growth, which is private capital investment into the economy, particularly into something that qualifies tax base that exceeds inflation. This year, we've got about $11.4 billion tax base. That's about a $382 million, again, natural growth. About 3.1%. That generates a little over $2 million of property tax revenue. That's net of depreciation. And I would remind you that since we're not in a revaluation cycle, that the real property, homes and land, structures and land, are unchanged. So that growth is coming from things that are newly built, newly invested into. We had 14% growth in motor vehicle values. The Hickory Airport, I looked at the values, for example, with some of the policy that you guys have put into place with personal aircraft, $125 million of personal aircraft value there on that property. Some of the buildings in our business park that we've talked about are starting to show up on the tax books. 401 new homes. That's the kind of stuff that drove that tax base, and thank goodness that it did. Because given some of the challenges and constraints that we've had from external forces this year, that's been the key driver in helping produce a balanced budget without any additional tax burden on our taxpayers. So you can see here the change in value over time, going all the way back to 2014. Little to no growth. This is a revaluation year in 2023. And so you can see this kind of little bump here, really the most substantial tax base growth that we've had in some time. And that's a very positive thing. Here's just our revenue portfolio. And you can see, I mentioned earlier, 52.4% of our total revenue coming from ad valorem tax and sales tax being the other large component there at about 17%, and then intergovernmental revenues, which is primarily court type revenues, public health, social services, makes up another 16%. As I mentioned, the budget is balanced on 55.5 cents, which is unchanged. We budgeted at 98%. Statutorily, we have to stay at or below the prior year's audited tax collection percentage, which was 98.38%. So we're in compliance there. I also mentioned a 14% value in motor vehicle revenue. We don't bill or collect motor vehicle, but it is a substantial portion of our tax revenue portfolio. And so we're able to look at average monthly dollars and really divide that by the rate to calculate what that growth looks like. And so after a couple of down years, we've seen a pretty significant rebound. There's been a lot of supply chain and inventory issues on lots that have impacted pricing. And even though no one wants to pay more for a vehicle, it does help tax base. So also our business park where the Shell building is going here. The Unix building, this is an old photo, but it is complete now and operational. and a portion of that building is available for lease. And I know that the folks that own that building are working with Brandon and BDI to do net lease there. So again, another opportunity for FF&E or property and machinery and equipment to be moved into that building. I think there's about a little over 100,000 square foot that's available for lease. So that's exciting. I mentioned the T-Hangar projects at the Hickory Airport, which also added to our tax base. We've also, following the uncertainty of disaster recovery with Hurricane Helene last year, where we basically saw a flat sales tax, been able to dig out of that a little bit this year. Consumer spending's up about 8.2%. This is Article 39, which is the point of sale. So there's three primary articles of sales tax, 39, 40, and 42. 39 is the article that if you buy something in Burke County, those sales tax dollars come back. Article 40 and 42 are more of a statewide collection and then distributed by the Department of Revenue based on your county's proportionate share of population. So I think this is a good indicator of economic performance too. Article 40 and 42 that I just mentioned, both growing at a rate that's higher than inflation, about 4.5%. And so what we've, in total, across all three articles, we budgeted sales tax up about 5.3%. That's roughly $930,000. I still think that is a conservative approach, even up 5.3%, roughly $19.25 million. That's going to be in line with what we're forecasting for the current year. So again, when I say responsible and recession ready, I still think we're building in growth to constrain that spending, but we're doing so in a way that I think is safe. I mentioned Medicaid hold harmless. This was a loss of $1 million in revenue. We've talked about this, I know, at your work session, but as a brief reminder, there was an Article 44 sales tax that used to come to counties in 2011. The state General Assembly changed the way Medicaid costs were paid. It used to be 50% counties, 50% state, and that went to a 75-25% state. So they took on more of the cost share, but to pay for that, they repealed a sales tax that was going to counties and put that back in state coffers, with the understanding that if the sales tax outperformed those Medicaid claims, that refund, that net number, would go back to counties, and that's what we called Medicaid hold harmless. That was the terminology. And you can see here the blue line is the sales tax, so it does what sales tax does, up and down just a shot. Starts to slow as life gets more expensive. But the real challenge is these state paid Medicaid claims in our county have gone up 20%, 16%, and 22%. So 3 out of 5 years, almost over 16%, almost 20% growth, which means that the sales tax being collected no longer covers those Medicaid claims. And therefore, we do not get that recoupment of revenue, which is roughly $1 million. And you can see that change over time here. Investment income, another revenue source that we've tried to maximize to take pressure off of property taxpayers. We in local government, so much of our revenue comes in on the front 2, 3. Our fiscal years, you all know, is July through June, and often escrow payments from banks on real property is paid in July or August to take advantage of a 1% early pay discount. So we may collect 50-60% of our total revenue in the first 2 operating periods. And then there's a declining kind of law of diminishing returns throughout the rest of the year, where the expenditure side of the budget is very flat. And so we have at times excess cash that we can invest into interest-bearing accounts and try to generate interest revenue. And we've been able to grow that over time from about 63,000 this year to a little over 2 million. And again, for perspective, that's about 2 cents on the property tax rate. We try not to budget that because it is volatile and there is interest rate risk. But for next year's budget, we've plugged in $825,000, which I think is, again, a very conservative approach. But the actual numbers, seem to yield a lot of. It gives us a lot of flexibility as we operate in the cycle. I'll close on the revenue side with public health and DSS. It's about 17% of our total revenue. HR 1, the big beautiful bill, I'll talk about that momentarily, but the impact of the federal government cost share on food nutrition, which is commonly known as food stamps, historically they have paid 25% of those total administrative costs, and the big beautiful bill took that from 25% to 0. The state of North Carolina did not pick that up, so that inherently becomes a Burke County and all 100 counties in North Carolina cost to budget now, and so we lost about $550,000 in total revenue. We were able to close that gap, so the total revenue only changed by about $50,000. I would remind you that much of what is considered revenue at DSS is actually just recoupment of cost already expended by the county. So as you spend more, you would expect those reinvestments, those recoupments from the federal government and state government to be higher. So that can be a bit misleading. I would expect revenue typically to go up because you typically, again, spend more. The reason that it's within $50,000 is because of HR 1. But I would say the reason it's not more severe is because we've launched back in August of 2025 a pretty intense working group that's focused on how to maximize state drawdowns. We thought we were a couple percentage points higher than what we could be as far as county cost to fund Department of Social Services. And I'll talk about that in just a moment, but we've been able to see some improvement there. There are some fee changes proposed for the upcoming budget. The first one that I would point out is this private parent adoption. This in no way impacts foster kids or foster care in Burke County. There are some. There's a statutory ability for counties to charge a sliding scale fee based on income. So meaning for lower income wage earners, this could be 0. For higher wage income earners, this could be up to $1,000. But it's for our compliance and regulatory oversight of private adoption processes that has to be done by county government, and it's charged by essentially every county that we could find in our region. And we only do about 8 or 10 of these a year, so this is not a high volume component. In emergency management and in the fire marshal's office, there's some fee modification, again, for work that's being performed that's typically charged by counties, and we have not had those part of our rate structure. I'll talk about the solid waste budget shortly, but As you all know, we have to transport our municipal solid waste to Caldwell County to Republic Landfill, and they've seen about a 4.5% increase in our tipping fee there. So we've adjusted our rate accordingly from $92 to $97. And then on the water sewer side, which is maybe the most meaningful, we've continued to try to fix that business envelope. And I'll walk through why those rate structures are. But on the municipal side, which is about 87% of our customers, moving from $5 to $7.25, and then on the unchanged really for the consumption rate, but for our direct customers, also really $7.25 across the first 1,000 gallons for all of them. I'll draw your attention to this side of the screen. This is really a fee structure change that I think is a customer service enhancement for environmental health, and there are some fee changes, nothing of materiality. But the primary change is many, I would say Nate, who's our chief environmental health specialist, supervisor, he would say almost most of folks who come in and want a construction authorization test, otherwise known as a perk test, only need that. They're either buying land, selling land, and they don't need the full blown, and currently our rate structure doesn't allow that to happen. So we've separated that out so that somebody can get the full design and CA for $400, or they can buy only the perk test for $150, and that's going to be substantially cheaper than what they would have to pay now, about half. Other than that, there were some immaterial fee change structures that are more in line with what other counties are charging, and as we've seen cost of equipment and vehicles and labor go up, it's just an adjustment to offset some of those additional costs. I'll talk quickly about our water sewer fund and why the rate adjustment's there. Following an asset inventory analysis done by Chuck Willis and his engineering team, we've now entering year 4 of trying to, again, create self-sustaining enterprise funds. Water sewer is a big component of that. When you talk about the pumps and the valves and the cost with really investing into this system, and as you all know, you get a letter from the local government commission every year that says that we can't afford to invest into that system in an adequate way. That's called a unit compliance letter. So fixing the ability to self-sustain and do out-year deferred maintenance has been a real goal. We have 2 sewer systems that we operate. Both are pretty small. One is called Indian Hill Service Area that sends wastewater to Hickory. The other one is called Island Creek, which sends wastewater to Valdez. I would point out that both Hickory and Valdez, we do not treat our own wastewater or water. We buy water and sell it. We collect wastewater and pay for it to be treated in Valdez and in Hickory. Both of those entities are going up 10% on their wastewater treatment cost. So that is part of our rate calculation consideration. But both of these sewer systems have also had an excessive amount of wastewater that we're paying to treat that we haven't been able to collect on. And as I mentioned earlier, about 87% of our customer counts actually are direct customers of other municipalities, Rhodes, Conley Springs, Rutherford College, that flow into our systems. And we have historically not charged a base connection fee. So we've given a $0 connection fee, and we're charging a wholesale rate. And so what that means is if you take a customer that's a Hildebrand customer, for example, who uses a standard monthly 5,000 gallons, their sewer bill is $78, and of that $78, Burke County's water and sewer fund is only getting $9.20 because the rest of it's going to Hickory. Now compare that to somebody who's a direct Burke County customer that has 5,000 gallons of sewer. They're only going to pay $62.50, so substantially cheaper. But of the $62.50, $46 of it is going to Burke County Water and Sewer Fund to pay for pumps and valves and pipes and labor and cleaning right-of-ways and manhole covers and all of the things that go in with managing that system. So that's what we're trying to identify so that we can, again, have self-sustaining enterprise funds that don't put additional pressure on the property tax rate. Part of that also is, I mentioned the excess water. That's also called, we'll call it infill and infiltration, meaning that as your system deteriorates, you're able to let outside sources get in. And then if it's sewer, you're often paying the treatment facility for us, Hickory or Valdez, to treat rainwater, which is very expensive. They can't differentiate between true wastewater and rainwater. And historically, we've not had a system that could differentiate between who was putting it into our system, meaning was it one of our 5 municipal customers, or was it truly direct customers of Burke County? And so we have working through the implementation of a metering system that will collect about 90% of the material entering our system. These stars kind of show where those are going to go. But we're optimistic as for next year's budget that the rate changes with the implementation of a standard rate for municipal and direct, along with these sewer meters, will be a huge step in the right direction for our water sewer fund. So again, there's the proposed ladder for moving into next year. The impact on Connolly Springs, just to give you some example of materiality for our municipal folks, about $7,300 plus I&I. For Hildebrand's about $35,000 plus I&I. For Roadhead, it's about $28,000 plus I&I. When I say I&I, again, I mean the foreign material getting into our system. And for Rutherford College, it's about $73,000. Our staff has communicated this with the professional staff of each of those organizations and explained the whys and had good conversations and received good feedback. So jumping into the general fund here, as I mentioned, about a 3.1% change year over year, just incremental growth in our total general fund. Our allocation, so this optic, as you've seen many times, is just demonstrating that about 29 cents of every budgeted dollar will be in human services, about 24 cents will be in education, and about 33 cents will be in public safety moving into next year. Here's a little further breakdown that shows change year over year. And I mentioned, if you remember at the beginning, for salaries, for example, there's about a $2.8 million change, but of that $2.8 million change, only roughly 35% of that, or $988,000, is for salaries. There's a vast variety of other costs that the local government employee retirement system, just for general fund employees, we also have a law enforcement separation allowance, which is a separate pension just for law enforcement that is controlled by the state treasurer's office. It's also seeing an inflationary cost adjustment. And you can see kind of the breakdown there with health insurance and overtime and some of the other components. I would point out that if you look at our total operating budget for 26-27, $18,012,000, it's still roughly $250,000 less than it was in 23-24. We'll talk about education and debt service as we move through. I also mentioned part of our budget balancing strategy was to delay some out-year capital. There's a $600,000 reduction in the transfer to our capital improvement plan. I think that's important to say that there's no project that's not going to happen, but we did pace ourselves and delay some things. And so I don't think anything that would be irresponsible. That may be implementation of servers and switches in IT. It may be, instead of having a 5-year savings component for a roof, we turn that into 7. And we did that to kind of spread that cost out to give us a higher level of flexibility going into 26-27. Again, we talk about price and value as part of our culture. High performance means performing high-performing services and making sure that our citizens get the value. The proposed budget and where we're at currently is our per capita tax burden, meaning if you take a tax levy for Burke County government divided by our total number of people, it's about $672 per person, which ranks 18th in the state. I expect that we'll be able to stay there. And then we've just gone through a metric here that demonstrates what the per capita cost is. So quickly, for example, in the current year that we're in, to fund 911 communications, each person in Burke County is paying about $35 per person. So a household of 3 paying right at a little over $100 for 911 and so on and so forth for all the services that we offer here. And I expect that per capita levy and that ranking across the state to be consistent as we move into next year's budget. I mentioned that we're started at a zero base on the expenditure side with a flat 55.5% tax rate, and our operating cost was actually down $264,000. We did maintain, even though it's at a less and lower reduced amount, our capital reserve, risk management, and debt service. I'll talk about employee pay, but what is being proposed is a 1.5% increase July 1st, and then based on economic performance and affordability, a contingent 1.5% January 1st, 2027. Cumulatively, those have a cost impact of what's budgeted about 2.25%, but only the July 1st data would be, or a raise would be guaranteed. I'm optimistic and hopeful that the January performance would work out, but that's the way that we have it drafted in the budget. We also maintained the county's allocation that only started last year of $50,000 to match the federal home community block grant for Meals on Wheels. You'll see a $650,000 increase in for public education. That's $150 to Western Piedmont Community College, $500,000, which is 2.4% to Burke County Public Schools. And I would point out that, again, no new FTEs, and this maintains all of your equity, debt ratio, capital ladders, and all of your policies. I know this is small, but this is trying to put all of our general fund departments on one screen to show the change. What I would say is about half of our departments are spending less next year, and about half are spending more. The most significant increase is in public safety. Some of the equipment is sole sourced. Recruitment retention is challenging, and certainly the cost of operations and improvement there is one of the more expensive functions to administer. But this is in your book, and I'm happy to circle back if we need to. I'll quickly run through your 5 focus areas, which are all unchanged from the year that we're in. Employer of choice, we've talked a lot about talent retention, incentive-based wellness, trying to make sure that we maintain good, consistent indicators. We did an in-house pay classification study last fall. These are the positions we look at, which make up a substantial portion of our total FTE headcount, and we compared it to these counties. And largely what we found when we looked at these analytics was that our starting pay was still highly competitive. But we do have some compression issues, which is why, meaning that someone, there's no, most people are very front end loaded at the beginning of the pay plan. So someone who has 5 days of experience and 5 years of experience often make the same thing. And there's no recognition of institutional knowledge and training and development. So the proposed 1.5% in this year's budget is not a COLA. It's actually a movement through the range to move people off of the minimum. So as we hire new folks, that'll start to alleviate some of those compression issues that we're seeing. We also are proposing continuation of our performance management system, which looks to generate organizational savings through cost avoidance and then reinvest that into our staff. And that's been a big part of our culture over the last couple of years, and something that has actually provided positive feedback on our budget. Public safety, we're going to continue to focus on your strategic plan. This will be year 2 of strategic plan implementation. I know we talked about a lot of those performance indicators at the beginning of the budget when we were trying to elude commitment to the current plan. Opioid funding is part of this focus area, and support for our fire departments. Certainly, as we're seeing increased cost, they are too, with apparatus and contracts and personnel cost. And I know that's a big component of this board's strategic plan. So when you look at the total public safety portfolio, it's about an 8% increase, $33.3 million total investment. Really I think the average increase across the board is pretty similar. When you look at our total investment, just for, again, perspective, our per capita investment in public safety is $358. And you can see in our regional peer group, that's still highly competitive. And I specifically pulled out, for illustration purposes, the sheriff's office to show that on a per capita basis, still again, a very, very efficient operation. Inside of our volunteer fire service, we operate 21 independent voluntary fire service districts. Total funding there will be about $8.4 million. The average revenue is about $400,000. On average, it's an increase of about 50. We have 2 fire departments that are asking for rate increases, triple. Community Fire Department, which is asking for a 3.5-cent rate increase, and West End, which is asking for a 1.5-cent rate increase. Here you can see where they are this year. We're currently what the revenue generation capacity is. If there was no rate change, what it would be, and with the proposed rate changes. And I'll point out that we did require a budget meeting, and certainly it was a very fruitful one with both West End and Triple. Out of the $330,000 that Triple would generate, Their board has directed staff to put $200,000 of that annually into a building fund, kind of an escrow, a sinking fund, they're in need of either new station or significant station repairs. I think they have some structural imbalances and some challenges there. And maybe also the building and the trucks don't necessarily fit. So there have to be significant improvements there. And then the other roughly $130,000 would be used for personnel costs. I think they currently pay $15 an hour to their staff. And surrounding fire departments are paying 16 to 18, and so they're having some challenges, and they want to be able to invest about $130,000 a year additional into people. West End generally is about $141,000 of additional revenue per year. They operate 3 stations. Commissioner Berry reminded me Oak Hill also does that, and so at each station they have to have a first out truck, and NFPA requires that that's something less than 20 years old. And this would go to replace a truck. I think they also have some escalating personnel costs that a portion of that may be attributable to. I've sent you all the financial balance sheet, income statement, and most recent audit for both of those, and I think they're in your books also. But those are the requests for each of the fire departments, with only Triple and West End requesting any change. And again, happy to answer any questions that you guys may have on that. When I think about community advancement, specifically in that focus area, one of the things that jumps out to me is this vertical integration of foster care. Very excited about that. That's a partnership between our Department of Social Services and Black Mountain Children's Home, which is a foster care agency. There's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years with foster care. One is the Families First Act, which is a law that basically prioritizes family home settings for foster care children and removes what's called federal 4E funding in congregate or group care after 14 days. And to put it in perspective, group and congregate care is upwards of $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 per month compared to a licensed standard home, which may be $600 or $700 or $800 per month. So that's a big change. Back in November of 2025, only a few months ago, the state changed how Medicaid works for all foster care youth, and now contract that out to Blue Cross Blue Shield through a nonprofit called Healthy Blue. And there was a combination of bridge payments and incentives for folks to take challenged kids in an effort to keep young people out of the Department of Social Services living in the building. And those are just two of a couple of examples that have really been a challenge to all 100 counties. We all know here in Burke County specifically, we have a low number, somewhere between 11 or 12 licensed county foster parents. We have 215 kids in care. There's a substantial substance use issue that's driving that in. And so we've really got to try something innovative and new. And this idea of vertical integration is a big deal. Obviously, the water sewer components, the housing, the Citizens Academy that we just completed our second effort in, finishing out our CAB and great grants for broadband expansion to get to those projects closed out, all included in your community advancement focus area. Here's some of the outside agency funding considerations that are included in your budget, total about $542,000. Several of those are flow through, meaning grant funded that we share, like Reason and the airport, and others are just folks that are contracted to help us achieve our goals. Under economic development, I think revow management is a big priority for next year, as well as the Shell building and supporting BDI in their product development efforts. And then fiscal stewardship, getting that fund balance through the FEMA public assistance process, MSW-CEL, which was one of your top priorities, looking for grants that help advance without the utilization of local resources, the adaptive reuse project of our public health and social services building, and then again, enterprise funds that are self-sustaining. Just a couple additional thoughts in that fiscal sustainability focus area. We do talk about re-engineering, which is how do we generate additional revenue outside of tax, property tax base? How do we create cost avoidance and efficiency improvements? This will be year 4, and we have a couple of ideas that we'd like to implement. One is EMS billing. We brought that in-house 2 years ago, and that's generated about almost $2 million of additional recurring positive revenue. Next year, we'd like to continue to advance that and partner with our local hospital for inter-facility and non-medically necessary transports through our EMS department, and have that be contracted again directly with the hospital. Position justification is a process that will continue next year, which is every single position that becomes open, whether it's an appraiser, a paramedic, or a heavy equipment operator at the landfill. Every position that comes open is analytically explored to see if there's a way to consolidate or to do that in a more efficient way. We don't just blanketly refill spots. And typically there's a 1 or 2 per year that we can manage without replacement, which is a cost avoidance strategy. The DSS revenue maximization, that's what I talked about. That helped us offset the HR1 revenue loss. And I'll touch on that here just briefly. These are the 2 contracts that I mentioned with the hospital for EMS transport. We think those collectively are going to increase revenue by about $350,000. As it relates to DSS, this is the HR1 impact. So not only do we lose 25% federal reimbursement, but we also have income maintenance caseworkers who will be required to do additional verifications, which again, I think most people would agree that it's not that the policy's poor policy or that there shouldn't be integrity in case file management. It's just the impact on the local budget that I'm speaking of that makes it more of a challenge. Here's the 1571. So again, this is an analytic that we now do monthly. This is just a 3-year average that shows what did we request. As the department spends money, a percentage of that is reimbursable through the state through a multitude and a webbing of interrelated codes, and you have to correctly apply for that in order to see that reimbursement. And so, as you can find costs that maybe are non-reimbursable, or there's things called CAP programs, there's a variety of really important nuances that help you maximize that revenue source. And what you can see is we've been able to move from over the last 2 years, really, since we started doing this deep dive, from about 45 or 47% reimbursed to about 53%. And the difference there is somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million, which is, again, given the fact that we saw such a significant loss of revenue from HR1, the reason that the social services budget, I believe, was able to hold as strong as it did without overburdening. I think that the total went from 38.2% county subsidy to a 38.6% county subsidy, which is a really good number. Also, just quickly on foster care to demonstrate some of the challenges there with that idea of being vertically integrated. Like, we know the number of children in care is disproportionate to our community size. We also know that our claim status, 2/3, roughly per 1,000 residents, our children in Burke County about 30% higher. The number of claims substantiated, almost double. And when you look at children actually taken into care after substantiated claims, we have a higher intake model, and there's a lot of socioeconomic issues that, again, one of the emphasis on economic development is to help with that. Once we get kids into care, timeline of permanency is slower than the state average. Days in care is longer. That's because there is no ecosystem for behavioral health and reunification. And part of this contract with Black Mountain, if approved, helps build that wraparound services and build this ecosystem for behavioral health here in Burke County for services that simply don't exist, as well as contracting with them to do licensing, recruitment, and support of foster care. I'm not aware of anywhere else in the state, maybe in the country, where this is happening. I'm excited about the opportunities. And I would point out that if you look at the total amount spent for foster care board payments compared to the congregate emergency care, like, they're directly in line. And this is why the DSS budget is the secondary reason it's been so challenging. We had to increase, and we have a contingency for foster care board payments in the DSS budget for about $1.2 million. That's more than double what it has been in the past, simply because of this reason. Because you lose federal 4E funding after 14 days. The intake numbers are what they are, and placement is such a challenge given some of the state policy changes we've seen. And that's what I was saying. So you can see congregate compared to last year, we've gone from 12 children to 28 children in congregate group care. That's the number. That's where it's at. Quickly on opioid, our goal this year is to put continuing resolutions, if you will, into your budget consideration for all things opioid settlement that are already in place, so not to be disruptive. So some of the contracts with High Country, Caring Alternative, Spark, that were approved this year, the Bear Team, Recovery Court, will continue into next year. Those resolutions are set to expire June 30th. So it's included in your budget for next year, would prevent us from having to go back through these mechanics and create a seamless transition. We did put a $465,000 allocation for RFAs, request for other community partners as we identify prevention and other types of strategies that we just haven't got to yet. We may put out additional RFAs to say who can help with this, who can help get into schools, who can help with other types of youth development programs that help prevent substance use. As a reminder, our goals were to, number one, save people, reduce fatalities. Number two, provide a pathway for recovery for those who are ready to be in recovery. And I think we've made significant progress in both of those. Not arrived, but significant progress. But I think the most important thing, and what we can't do until we do some of those other things from a regulatory perspective, we're not allowed to, is prevention. And that's what that future RFA is in the proposed budget to do. Of course, that would have to come back before this board before anything was awarded, but it's at least considered. Quickly on debt, we have 2 pieces of debt remaining. We just paid it off, drawn in Patton High School back in March. So there's a total outstanding of a little over $25 million, one for the county jail and the other for Mountain View Elementary School. Our 10-year payout is 87%. I'll remind you, your policy is over 50. Next year's debt service payments on principal is about $2,055,000. And this is just quickly going through your debt portfolio to make sure that our budget stays compliant. You can see we compare incredibly well, both at a state level and federally, for other counties of our size and jurisdiction, bond rating wise. For example, this is looking at debt service as a percentage of total expenditures. You should be, according to Moody's and S&P, anything less than 8% is as good as you can get. We're at 4 on assessed value. Anything less than 1% is good, and we're at 0.15%. This is our debt service fund. You can see the 2.5 and the 1.5 coming from the school system for Mountain View, along with the principal and interest payments there. On our capital side, I mentioned we're delaying some funding. We're slowing some pace on some things. Rolling stock maintained fairly flat, but some other things were able to be delayed, but a total investment of a little over $2 million in operational capital. We also are planning for some capital. There's nothing in the budget, but I'll just put it on your radar that we talked about it at your work session, that our EMS fleet is beginning to age, and with an 18-month, 24-month lead time, we want to start planning for that now. And so the idea is to begin to prepare as for the financing of the HRC, the Health and Human Services building. We would consider a bulk purchase or acquisition of additional ambulances. And this is just showing here what our mileage would be like in the age if we don't do it versus if we do. I just put that in there as an indicator to say it's part of the capital program outlook, although it's not actually got any budgeted resources in next year's budget. Our water sewer fund will continue the water meter, sewer meter installs we've talked about, implementation of AIA, and then most importantly, the lift station, the sewer lift station in Indian Hills. On the solid waste side, our transfer station for MSW collection has a leachate collection system in the floor that has to be replaced. And so we budgeted $150,000 for that. Other components of your capital improvement plan, all of your short-term priorities are complete. Most of your midterm ones are complete, and we are working on continuing to keep that program moving forward. Your legislative priorities, and we've continued to work with your help in communicating this with legislators, both federal and state. That lift station, occupancy tax sharing agreement, and utilization of Shell building funding. We're optimistic that we'll sell this building, and hopefully it's a good project that everybody can get behind, and maybe we can do some further exploratory investment. Talk quickly about our employee wellness fund, and I promise I'm wrapping up here, sir. Just a lot to talk about. So we're self-insured, self-funded. It's roughly a $9 million self-insured fund. We've seen significant uptick in cost. I don't think it's unique to the fact that we've seen 3 out of 5 years Medicaid, state-paid Medicaid claims go up almost 20%. Our fund is trending up at 18.2% this year. The pharmaceutical side continues to be a little higher than we want. I'd remind you that last year we reduced this cost by about $1 million by restructuring the pharmacy formulary. We still have the same number of high-cost claimants. At 22, we classify high-cost claimants as people that cost more than $62,500. Not quite half, but a significant majority of those 22 are folks that are retired and only work here, but are still on the county's health plan. And that's driving substantial costs. We've started doing population health and biometrics this year, where employees who are on our plan have to do A1C screenings, blood pressure, cholesterol, waist circumference. And we're going to use that to hopefully strategically deal with and drive down some of these mid-level costs, specifically diabetes, back pain, some of these other things that may be behaviorally driven that have seen substantial increase and are driving claims. We're optimistic that we can impact that in a positive way. You can see claims going up pretty substantially. What I'd point out is that we've noticed a significant difference. The county still offers 2 different types of health plan systems. One is a PPO, preferred provider. One is an HSA. And there's a pretty significant, about a 30% per member per month cost difference between the HSA and the PPO. And so we beginning July 1, for any county new hire, would like to stop offering the PPO. Everyone that's on it now can continue to be on it as long as they'd like. We're recommending a $45 a month, 5% pre-tax copay to remain on the PPO. The HSA side would still be 100% employer provided. It is a 7% increase for spousal dependent on HSA and a 20% increase for spousal dependent on the PPO. We've met with all of our county employees over the last 2 weeks. Mark Miller in the Human Resources Department did that and shared that information, and the feedback was understanding. We offered people the opportunity to shift, and that's still going on now during open enrollment. But we think those are necessary steps to mediate some of these healthcare cost challenges. Education, I'll move quickly, but this continues to be one of the Board of Commissioners' top goals, with a focus on teacher supplements and classroom size and outcome. I would point out that our school system, similar to us, faced some declining revenue and budget challenges. This was I think Mr. Lawson is here, but this is some of his work just to demonstrate, again, a very significant budget to manage through. I would point out that we all know that ADM continues to go down in public schools, from 12,500 in 2014 to a little over 11,000 now. But I'd point out that is just in the public school system. That is not total students. If you add up all of the students in private, charter, public, and homeschooled, our student population is actually the same. There is no substantial change. And that is one of the challenges with average daily membership funding. When average daily membership funding started from the state level, there were no school choice options. So anytime that you have significant increasing school population or decreasing school population with an ADM model, it creates budget challenges, significant budget challenges. One of those challenges, and again, pro-school choice is likely good policy, but there are budget impacts that must be considered. And for us in Burke County, there's $2.6 million being paid to private schools for Opportunity Scholarship, which is one of the challenges. And if you said, well, where did the non-traditional enrollment by type kind of go? You can see in 2021, Opportunity Scholarships was 140, and now it's 453. Charter school and homeschool has remained significantly unchanged, but the total population in the last 7 years has changed by 957, and they've all gone to one of those 3 outlets. So one of the challenges that I would point out is on the ADM funding style. These are our elementary schools in Burke County. This is their enrollment. This is the suggested state ratio, which means our folks have to stay below that. And if you add them up, and elementary school, Mr. Lawson helped me with this, but elementary school staffing paid for by the state is based on a system-wide component. And so if you look at our elementary schools, the state allotted teacher positions is 208, but to stay below the ratios that are required by the state, we have to have 230 FTEs, and another 38 teacher assistants. So there's one example of many that present this funding gap, where the ADM model, again, in a period of growth or contraction, is a real challenge. Of our allotment, about 49% goes to operations, 46% goes to salaries. I would point out that one of the Board of Commissioners' goals was to have competitive teacher supplements, and you have accomplished that. And the school board certainly, and the executive staff, but the joint partnership, I think, has been a very high success, and I think that helps recruit and retain talent in the classrooms, and ultimately set us up for long-term success. I'll say this: the proposed increase is 2.4%, which is an inflation offset. It's $500,000. It would take the total allocation to $21 million. And all this slide is showing is that the value of a dollar today is worth more than the value of a dollar tomorrow. And so this red bar is CPI over time. There's an inflationary index that impacts purchasing power every year. This blue line is our actual local funding, but I've adjusted it for inflation, which is the green line, just to show. Here's the point. If you start where we are and you go back, that $21 million funding level from a purchasing power perspective is about the same as it was in 2013 or 14 at $13.5 million. So we've kind of been able to offset inflation, but the ADM side and some of the other budget challenges are what they're navigating. The community college asked for about a 9% increase, roughly $283,000, and then flat capital allocation. The recommended budget has $150,000 increase that takes it to $3.69 million. That's about a 4% increase with flat capital. Our solid waste department has revenues budgeted at $7.5 million, expenditures at $7 million. Again, that difference is for out year post-closure costs, liability, regulatory, permitting, and so forth. No major changes other than the pass-along fee change from Republic. And then same in water sewer with 2.5 in revenues, 2.1 in expenditures, and the rate stabilization that I talked about. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you enduring that and your patience. But at this time, I ask that you guys accept that report. Happy to answer any questions and consider a public hearing for June 15th.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions on this before we accept the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask that, as it relates to Triple Community in West End, have they had their annual meeting yet to present this increase to their citizens?
As of last week, or the week before, I don't believe Triple had, but they acknowledged that they intended to. And so I think before the board is required to take action, that's something they intend to do.
I'd like to get a copy of the minutes from that meeting, and when they do have it, if that's possible.
Sure.
Other questions? All right, seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion to acknowledge receipt of the manager's recommended budget for fiscal year 26-27.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. And then I'll entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing for Monday, June the 15th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as persons may be heard.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. We've been going almost 2 hours. I'm going to call for about a 5-minute recess, give you just a minute to move about. We got a number of other things to consider tonight. And so we'll have a 5-minute recess and then reconvene. We'll call our meeting back to order. If you'll have a seat, please come to order. This brings us to item 7 of our agenda tonight, scheduled public hearings. We do have 2 public hearings to consider tonight. First one from our Community Development ZMA 2026-01, reference to 3637 Miller Bridge Road, Conley Springs, zoning map amendment and public hearing. This will be presented tonight by our planner, Patrick Dickinson. Evening, Patrick.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you to the board. Good evening, y'all. Tonight I'm going to be presenting ZMA 2026-01. As the chairman just mentioned, this is for 3637 Miller Bridge Road, and the request is to rezone a parcel of land of 31.6 acres from industrial to a planned residential mixed-use development as a conditional zoning. So a little bit of background about this parcel. This parcel is mostly cleared with some dilapidated structures and forested areas to the north. It is currently zoned for industrial use. Industrial use never occurred at this parcel. It was put up for sale and it was purchased by the applicant. It's surrounded by a variety of land uses. To the north is Carolina Rehab and East Burke Middle. We have a light industrial use to the east, that's ITE Incorporated. And we also have Shoup Groves Baptist Church to the south, and then just some general residential development in the area. Here are some site photos. That first one on the top left is looking into the property from Miller Bridge Road. That one in the middle is looking north on Miller Bridge Road. The one on the right is looking south on Miller Bridge Road, and then across on the bottom. So our current zoning for this property, the current zoning is industrial. This is our most intensive land use in Burke County zoning. This allows anything from manufacturing, scrap yards, processing facilities, and landfills. The proposed zoning would be a planned residential mixed use through a conditional zoning. And the proposed uses under this conditional zoning are 85 cross-mod modular homes, and then small grocery, retail, healthcare, service station, and daycare commercial uses. These would be the only uses that would be allowed and permitted by this ordinance if approved. So our future land use map, currently it is designated industrial, same as the zoning. We would have to change the future land use map to support this residential infill, which would support this residential type character and some neighborhood supportive business uses. So here's the actual community master plan. So just a few things to point out. There's those two commercial lots fronting Miller Bridge Road. Those are the ones that would host the daycare, healthcare, and small grocery store if they were developed that way. As you can see at the top right, the community open space area, which is a designated, or it was a found wetland, so that would be forever conserved as a community open space. We also have 85 lots, as I mentioned earlier. These are with cross-mod homes. Those are homes that are both built in the factory and built on site. They have kind of both of those options, or I'm sorry, not both options, but they have both of those. I'm not sure quite how that works. I'm not the housing on that one. And then also we have two egress and ingress points. That first one is off of Miller Bridge Road. And we also have another one that comes down past ITE and then connects onto Shoups Grove Church Road. The water is provided by Eichard Water and sewer would be provided by Burke County. And then there would also be an establishment of an HOA for continuing roadway and amenity maintenance. So what is a conditional zoning? This is a rezoning process that binds a specific site plan to an individualized development conditions for the property. These require public hearings, adjoiner letters, and site postage for both board meetings. That's the planning board and board of commissioners. So this is an agreement between our Burke County boards and the property owner. It provides some flexibility from our zoning codes. I'll touch on that in 1 second. And then also there are strict use limits. So there will be no other land uses permitted on this property without it going through a future rezoning process and coming back before you guys again. So how these rules actually apply to this development. So there's proposed zoning district of planned residential mixed use. This allows certain things by right or by special use. Each of the uses that are requested in this are under that PRMU district. There is a custom lot sizing. So typically Burke County, our zoning ordinance, our lot minimum for a development with water and sewer would be about 1/4 of an acre. This one brings that down to 0.15 of an acre for each of those lots. The setbacks are also a little bit smaller. So this one is 20 feet for the front and rear and 5 for the sides. And our standard setbacks for this would be 30 feet for the front, 20 for the rear, and 15 for the sides. There's also a site plan review process that occurs. So this site plan was reviewed and approved by the Burke County Site Plan Review Team. This involves folks like EMS, Fire, GIS, and NCDOT. NCDOT approved both of the driveway accesses and also the traffic that would be produced by this proposed development. Finally, if this is approved by you guys, the final plans will be reviewed by staff for those development conditions that you guys discussed and the approved site plan. And if approved, a zoning permit would be issued at that time. So as you guys heard at your March 15th regular meeting, this will be a phased development plan based on the wastewater allocation for the Indian Hills Pump Station. So this will be a phase development that will finish out in 2029. So staff did find this was reasonable in the public interest for the following reasons. The surrounding mix of land uses supports a residential mixed-use development. The development is a candidate for conditional zoning as it is to cluster development or manage uses on a parcel in a way that may not be fitted by our conditional zoning or conventional zoning while maintaining or enhancing the goals of the ordinance. Burke County General Services is providing sewer utilities to the parcel. Typically, we have larger lot sizes when we have a septic tank, so this allows those smaller lots. And then while it's not consistent with that future land use plan, which I showed earlier was industrial, it would have to be changed, but we do find that to be consistent with the Blueprint Burke plan to reduce our housing crisis in the county. So the planning board did hear this at their March 26 meeting. They recommended 6-0 in favor of the request. Public comment was given by 2 property owners, one who had joined the property and one who was near the site. They did raise concerns about traffic, the density of the project, and the viewshed impact on the adjoining property owners. And the applicant has since met with these owners since the planning board meeting to address those concerns and mitigate their viewshed concerns. Do you guys have any questions for me at this time?
All right, thank you, Patrick. Gentlemen, before I open the public hearing, any questions for Patrick?
No questions at this time, but I would like for us to entertain the possibility, and I want to say this now, so if it does become a topic of the public hearing, that I would like to see us erect an appropriate fencing or screening between the residential and the industrial that exists there. I've had a couple of calls and there was some concern about that. And I think that would be
I will say, I'm not sure if you were able to see this. So on this far left side here, there's a little bit of screening that has been added on this side right here.
Yeah.
So any other additional screening would be a condition that would be added to that recent.
well, the one I'm talking about is in the back.
Okay,
there.
yes, that would be a condition that you guys can place on that. Yeah. Have any other questions for me?
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't necessarily have a question. I had a few comments. Is it best to do that now or after the public hearing?
I think, go ahead.
Because like some of you also probably received some emails and calls. I did as well. And of course, we all take it serious because people in the county are affected and we want to do the right thing by everybody. And so I was not a commissioner back when the housing study was completed that you guys had authorized back in 2023 and identified the excessive need for housing. And so I went and found that document and pulled it up and just to give some context for the folks maybe on YouTube. It's showing as of 2023 over the next 5 years, homes in the 190 to 285, a need of about 1,500 of those, higher income for sale homes, $285,000 plus, about 930 of those homes needed. And so I was trying to take that into consideration. And then there was a petition that went around via email, which some of us got notified. And I looked at those concerns and there's a traffic study that I just wanted to point out so folks will understand, because that is a concern. I live out Enola Road. We have Patton High, Liberty Middle, Mull and Salem. And so I understand the traffic concerns that folks are concerned about. And so the DOT traffic count happens to be that there's 3 of those that kind of surround that site, which is good to be able to get real data from. And all of that average daily traffic has gone down. For instance, the station located just north of Shoots Grove Church Road was at 4,141 average daily traffic in 2005. And the last count was done in 2025 and went from 4,100 to 2,900. And then there's one really close by located between Ocker Dairy and the NC 10 I-40 interchange was at 3,324 in 2021, and then was down to 3,271 average daily count in 2025. And then the other one is a station located on Shoots Grove Church Road before Old Highway 10 intersection was rated at 2,835 average daily in 2005, and then it's down to 2,041 in 2025. And I was just trying to get all that in my head and make sure that, if the board overall decide that's what we want to do, I want to make sure everybody had, some relevant information, so that we can make good decisions. And then one final thought, I'm kind of glad, I know it will affect people, but in my way of thinking, because we've ran into some zoning issues with heavy industrial, and I think, somebody could buy that and have a heavy trucking operation running big dump trucks in and out of there, and that would be a large operation, and probably pretty loud. So, in my mind, I kind of felt like maybe it's a good thing that it would be rezoned to something that, the neighbors, it wouldn't be loud. Yes, there'd be some traffic, but I think about the school and what's going on out there, and then maybe somebody develop that industrial, the whole thing, and it just be big heavy trucks in and out of there, and that to me would be a nightmare. So that's just my comments. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
And I would add, I think this has been a industrial park for more than 20 years. And the only tenant, if you will, that's there, built there when it was developed. And right now it does nothing significant for the tax base. I think this would be the best, highest use.
Okay. Other questions, comments? All right. Seeing here none, I'll open the public hearing at this time, and we have two folks who have pre-registered to speak at the public hearing. Mardissa Houston, are you here? Okay. Yes, you can speak if you'd like.
Who's the next one on the list?
Annette Houston.
If that's all right.
That's fine. Press the button there on the right.
Yeah, I think you can time on the right.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Good? We
State
good?
your name.
Okay. All right.
State your name
All
and
right.
address,
This one is
please.
Annette Houston, and I actually live on Miller Bridge Road. I don't live right beside like some of these residents, but I do live there. I've been there my whole life. But I want to thank you again for taking our comments and stuff. But I sat here and I listened to the county manager. I listened to him and I listened to Brandon, and they don't. We live there. We see the traffic. I appreciate you looking that up, but we see the traffic. We see it when we pull out. We see it in the mornings when we drop our kids off. This morning, there were people there at 6:45 on my way to work already lined up so they can get in and out to get to work on time because it's so bad. And there's another lady, maybe she'll speak about that in the evenings. It's terrible in the evenings, but I just wanted to say that I have lived there my whole life, and this proposal that they're doing, this 85, this is enormous and it's awful. And I get housing. My husband's a builder. I work for a builder. I'm not about stopping progress or building, but 85 homes. And there's no other place like this in our area. And this is such a congested little intersection, a tiny little place that it's just too much. And so I urge you, don't pass this, at least not the 85. If we have no say so other than reduce it, please make them. I mean, like I said, my husband's a builder. I know what we have to go by setbacks, and we have to make sure they make them have a little more property than 10 foot apart. That's just, these people that live right here, I can't imagine what they're going through. I'm just speaking because I live on this road. I've lived on this road my whole life, and I travel it daily. So my concerns are about the traffic. My concerns about this huge, ugly, development just being thrown there with no consideration to the rest of us that live there. And my husband and I made a trip down to Concord this past week. And they have houses upon houses and stuff down there, but they have a little bit in between of them, and they have landscaping. They've thought it through. They've planned it out. There's shrubs. There's big trees. There's this already is like one of the guy said, Patrick. I think it's pretty clear. There's a little bit of shrubs, a few trees, but it's not gonna hide anything that they're gonna throw in there. And so anyway, so that's all I have. I don't know how much time I have, but I just appreciate y'all's giving me the time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Houston?
My name is Cole Houston, and again, it's along the lines of a lot of what she said. It's 10 foot apart is not much. We were 6 feet apart just in COVID. You know what I mean? You ain't getting too far away from that. I just know because I like a little bit of space. I mean, we're considered anywhere. I guess apart from that, if you go down Miller Bridge Road, it's considered country. You know, I consider it. You got a lot of farmhouses and a lot of people spread out, little distance, but a 0.15 acre of land is not much to do anything on. And you guys can agree. I don't know how much land y'all own apart from your house, but 0.5 acres is nothing. That and like I said, I work at a job in Concord or in Lake Norman area. And even at 6 o'clock in the morning when I leave my house, it's Jack Be Quick, that area is pretty congested. And everywhere else is, you know, it's not as congested as around 7 to 7:30. But at 6 o'clock, you're still getting the flow of people trying to get there early. And I'm looking at people in the middle school line of they're backed up too because they want to get to work just as quick as they can. Along with that, it's I know in times of desperation and snow and everything else, I know how congested that area gets just because you got to get your milk and bread. So all we have within this area is a Dollar General, another Dollar General down toward 18 area, and then you have Hildebrand's grocery store of Food Line. Other than that, you got to drive all the way to Hickory. And some people don't like to drive that far. We have a lot of people over the age of 25 to 30 on that road. And I can contest to this because, I mean, there's just a lot. I grew up around them. You know, most of the people went to my church at Mount Calvary, which is also on that road. So I think 85 houses, a reduction would definitely be suitable from 85 houses. Because I don't know as far as if we even have enough grocery stores available yet or anything else. And they did do a study on EMS and when I went to college at Western Piedmont, there was a shortage on officers and everything else. I don't know if the sheriff can contest that now. I don't know. I don't want to say something and him not, yeah. But that's a lot of new people we're bringing to the area. And I'm more concerned with the area in itself of, is Burke County allowing the places we work, are they allowing the growth instead? Because, I mean, last time I checked, I think Baker and all them was starting people off maybe around $20 an hour. And is that going to contest for these people coming in? Are they going to stay around that area working? Or are they going to just go somewhere else and move down the line? Because I know you guys want growth. I'm cool with growth, but we also got to, I guess, keep in consideration too, are we going to keep these people here with the salaries and the everything else? So, and not just having a big 85 homes of vacant houses later on down the road. So I guess that was my concern. Thank y'all for my consideration and everything.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Do we have anyone else to speak to this item tonight? Okay.
If Susan Butterworth would approach the podium.
Well, thank you guys, and it's good to see you again. I would like to say I'm Susan Butterworth. My address is 2954 Orchid Lane. I am a triple community former Tribble Community Water customer, and a graduate of this Burke County Citizens Academy in the fall of 2025. So I know enough to be trouble. And I would just like to say that in regard to this community, I am for growth in terms of homes. I do have a problem though with some of the dynamics that we have here. I don't really care about the traffic. I know it's probably going to be a problem. That's not my issue. My issue is water. My issue is here's another situation that, as you pointed out, Brian, we're going to be sending money into the Hickory funnel. So we're not building and keeping it in terms of sewer. And with the water situation, we've got some real serious issues. I'm going to speak on your next one, so I'm going to break this up a little bit. But some things that I learned is really interesting. You know, everybody's up in arms about this data center that may go into Hildebrand. We have a lot of issues going on with that type thing. Not only do we have these two housing developments that we're slating, we have a data center trying to come in on top of 33,000 gallons per day going to Mecklenburg County. Now, we've all experienced Helene and the failure of our water systems. Every one of us experienced that. And from what I understand, there's a bunch of grant monies coming into Morganton, Drexel, and possibly Valdez. Although I heard they failed their grant, but then I read they got it. So I'm not really sure. That's your job. But I really think that instead of building on top of a bad failing water system called Valdez, and I can say that as a Tribble community customer, I have seen what's going on with them. You should go and watch the meeting that happened today. I highly encourage every single one of you. You don't want to throw money on top, good money on bad. They are banking on reevaluation and the taxes going up in this county so they can get more money to actually meet their budget next year. That's bad planning, terrible planning. So the other thing that I learned that I think is really important is that I got really upset when Phil said, we can't control Hildebrand, what they do. Well, I had to dig into that a little bit. And I spent some time with some of your people. And I understand that, yeah, you guys can only control the zoning and county-owned property. You cannot control municipalities. So while we have someone making a ton of money like you, Mr. Epley, or we have a developing committee, a planning committee, we have economic development. None of that means anything if you get 5 people on a board down in Hildebrand making $1,000 a month to override it all. And that's what I think is happening. So I would like to see on this particular project, since we're going to run sewer out of the county and overburden a water system that's already failing, I want to acknowledge that you're doing good. I acknowledge that we need these homes, but I would like to see us put the, specifically, let's go back and let's honor action item 1.2 on the Burke Strategic Land Plan revised in 22, where we are putting manufacturing ahead. I am against rezoning this property because while we need homes, we need infrastructure. It is the primary thing on this strategic land use that didn't get done. We built all the trails. We did all the other, we've got tourism. Oh my God, do we have tourism? We got too much tourism. We need infrastructure, people. And why would everybody in Burke County support a system that they do not get to use? And that is real. And you mentioned it, Ryan. It's real. I don't want to support a septic system, $1 million lift pump, when if my septic goes out, I have to replace it myself. I don't get to get any advantages of all of this. So I think the taxpayers would be a lot more grateful if you fix their infrastructure before we add on and throw good money after bad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Butterworth. Madam Clerk?
Yes, if Brandy Huffman would approach the podium, please.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I'm Brandy Huffman. I'm on a small real estate brokerage, Huffman Realty Group, and I am in Hildebrand. So I am on the ground, in the ditches, day in and day out in the wild world of housing. Folks, we have a real crisis. We've had a real crisis at hand for quite some time. And I'm going to tell you that I'm for housing. I'm for my community. I'm not your agent who works from Marion to Maiden. I'm not that girl. I'm your agent who focuses on her community. And right here, Burke County, specifically Eastern Burke County, I'm that East End girl. That's where I work. But I don't just work there. I live there and I play there. Guys, I have the same concerns, but I also have children at that middle school. I'm in and out of those lines and that traffic every day. Housing is what is needed. We have heard so many things tonight about manufacturing, about business, about bringing in these things and building our community and building our county. Folks, we can't do that if we don't have a place for people to live. We simply can't do it because, as the gentleman a time or two before me said, he goes to Concord to work. We have a lot of folks that do that. And it's because what we have here is not supportive of it. We don't have a place for people to live, and that is hurting us. It's hurting us economically. We need especially affordable housing, which is what's being proposed. Right now, on my buyer contact list, I have 2 handfuls of young couples who A, have either just gotten married, or B, are getting married within the next 18 months to 2 years. I have nothing in Hildebrand, Eichard, Conley Springs to sell them. I don't. What these folks want are a 3-bedroom, 2-bath starter home where they can begin to build a family and a life. And all that I have had in the real estate world in the last 5 years to sell them has been sporadic, and it's been predominantly 50 plus years old. It's tough on a young person's budget getting started to make those repairs to that type of housing. This type of housing is indeed what our area and what our market truly, truly needs. Like I said, a balanced real estate market, especially our area, right now I need about 6 months worth of real estate inventory to have a healthy market. Now, inventory's up a little bit than what we were dealing with 2 and 3 years ago. Right now, I'm working off of about 4 months worth of inventory. I'm still not where I need to be to have a healthy market. That healthy market is good for home buyers. It's good for our workforce growth, and it's good for our community to be long-term sustainable. We got to have it. We just have to have it. Growth can be extremely uncomfortable. I get it. I do. I so get it. But thoughtful housing development like's being proposed is necessary. It's necessary for our children. It's necessary for our grandchildren. A lot of what I'm hearing community-wide has to do with folks coming in from outside of our community. The folks that need this housing are from within our community. They've grown up there. They've either gone off to college, come back home, or they've just stayed. They've gone through community college here. Now they're ready to start their adult lives. I'm all for this. I'm all for this housing. I'm all for this development. I feel like it is truly a step forward with our housing crisis in the Eastern and Burke County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Huffman. Madam Clerk.
Would Ollie Ledbetter please approach the podium?
Good evening. My name is Ollie Ledbetter. I live in that little silver square at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And I'm not super excited about this. I build homes for a living in Burke County. I've done so for almost a decade. I also build in Catawba, Caldwell, Alexander counties. And I share the concerns of those that live right on this strip, that there are many mornings that I cannot gas up my trucks at the gas station that is just north of this picture. You just can't pull in the parking lot. There are so many cars at the gas station. And that is because the traffic light that sits just north of this picture is the only traffic light that handles the traffic for Eastburg Middle and Eastburg High. And many of our parents have students that go to one or both of those. So they have to sit through that traffic in order to get one or both of their children to school. And they're having to start to line up so early in order to be able to make it where they need to go, that traffic starts at 6:30, 6:45 a.m. And we just can't get through if we're trying to get our day started and get to work. We also have a real concern that developments like this could change the housing market for those that are local. And to speak to some of those that have already, we've watched counties like Catawba have to face this massive sudden high density growth, and we're watching Hickory have to grow into surrounding areas in order to try and support it with their infrastructure. And because they're trying to get these homes in so quickly, they end up being built out of state in a factory, brought in and dropped in place, which gives us local builders and remodelers no control over any of the quality of the homes or how long they're going to last, how long their investments are going to last. And I think most of us have mentioned none of us are against growth in our county. We know there's a percentage that is a healthy amount of growth. But if we fast track that with high density homes placed all at once without the infrastructure to support it, that doesn't seem sustainable. And it was only about a year ago, to my memory, I've bought and sold land within Burke County in the past years. We had a 1 acre minimum on a residential lot, and that was lowered to a half an acre. And then we've allowed developments to cut that number in half to 0.25 of an acre. And now we're talking about allowing that to get cut in half again, down to 0.15 of an acre. So I would just ask if you would consider in your decision what the reasoning would have been behind a minimum lot size when it was put into place, and whether or not it may have been to try and prevent something exactly like this from drastically and suddenly overwhelming our infrastructure. And as I was born in Burke, I was raised right down the street from what we're talking about here. And I want to see it grow and I want to see it healthy, but I don't want to see that at the expense of those of us that already love to call it home. So I appreciate your time listening to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Madam Clerk? Do we have anybody else that would like to speak to this subject tonight?
On the right. I didn't plan to speak. I live right across the street of this, where their entrance will be in and out. I've been watching them do the little bit of work that they've been doing. And like the others, they do line up the parents 6:30, 6:45 in the mornings. Some of them come out of that school area like the devil's chasing them. They have no regard for the person that's coming along. No, we're just going to jet out in front of you. So we've got that with traffic. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, I was going to Valdez, so I come down to the little stoplight we all talk about, and I look to my right, and there's cars already lined up right there. And they're in the road. They're just sitting parked in the road, waiting for their turn to go meander around into East Burke Middle to pick their kids up. And here again, Satan's chasing half of them so they can go to, if Burger King were open right now, Taco Bell, Granny's, or McDonald's. And he's right. You don't get gas down there in the morning unless you just have to, because you're not going to get in. You can't get in. Okay, so we've got our own traffic. 85 modulars that we were told were going to be ranch-style brick in the very beginning. I just found out about the modular thing a while ago. We were told initially that there would be 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick homes, ranch-style. So I was a little shocked just now when I found out it was modulars. Most homes are already 2 cars. So 85 times 2 is what? And then if there's a teenager driving, you got that in there. So you've got that extra traffic. There's supposed to be another way out at the top up there near the little factory back up through there. So that's going to be helpful. But we're just 85. That's just too many. I'm like them. I mean, I want homes. I want affordable homes, but I don't want 85 of them over there. Okay, 2 businesses. One's going to be a grocery store, so to speak. Go down there any time of the day, and you just look in front of Burger King and Granny's. There is a little terminal of some sort, electrical, you can plug in. We have homeless who plug in there, and they sit under the sun all day with their phone plugged in. They sit at Burger King with their phone plugged in. They go up to Granny's with their phone plugged in. Taco Bell and McDonald's. We have a heavy pedestrian traffic they don't contribute much to our community. So now you're going to have another little business across the street from me where I might have to put up with more foot traffic, so to speak. Just not 85 of them, people. Please, not 85. 70 maybe. And we walked it off out here a while ago, 10 feet. We had a little line and we just walked off 10 feet. My sister-in-law lives in Levittown, Pennsylvania. Any of y'all understand Levittown? It's a really tight community. They have more than 10 feet between their homes. And that was one of the first commercial communities built. They have more than 10 feet between their homes. I think these people deserve more than 10 feet too. So, and I'm not looking forward to the dust and the aggravation of the build, that's just me being petty. But I would like to ask you to lower the number. Please lower the number. And some sort of a privacy for those who have to stay there. And just something, just make it agreeable, make it easy for us to look at. So it won't be so hard to have to swallow this pill that we've not been, we've had no control over this. They told us one thing in Granny's kitchen, and now they're doing something different, a little bit different. I would just like to see the number smaller. Thank you.
Ma'am, I didn't get you. Would you state your name, please?
Robin Wells, 3724 Miller Bridge Road. 3721 Miller Bridge Road. I am right across the street from it.
Thank you.
I am right there.
Anyone else to speak to this? Yes.
My name's Jennifer Wright. Thank you for having us this evening. So I was able to visit the factory that makes these houses and also a development that's very similar to what this will be in Tennessee. So I just want to reassure everyone, these houses, they're great. They're high quality, even though it's called a modular. It feels like a stick built. It has stick built elements on the front that make it look stick built. It is small lots, but I think there is a demand for small lots. Retirees, young people that don't want to take care of large properties. But I'm mainly here just to say I've seen the product. It can be beautiful. It's a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful product and home. So just kind of reassuring everyone that it looks really nice and it's built really well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak to this matter? All right, seeing here none, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. Gentlemen, we've heard all the information. Any comments further before we entertain a motion?
Mr.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I may just make one brief comment. Because this is a conditional district, the board cannot modify those conditions without written consent of the petitioner. That includes things such as density and home numbers. Those are major modifications that are not allowed to be changed just unilaterally. Those have to be agreed to in a consent written document with whoever the petitioner originally was. That's a specific requirement of conditional districts.
Okay, thank you. Any other question, comment before we
Mr. Chairman, just one thing. I appreciate everybody's engagement on this. This is what we've been looking for, is the community completely engaged, everything transparent so we know what we're doing together. The infrastructure is a big problem. I'm on the TAC committee, and that's the first thing I've been upset about more than anything is we got to have bigger roads, wider roads. We ain't got no money. The money ain't coming. We all we got. There's a lot of people coming in. Everybody knows that. We're on point on all these different things, and you guys are helping us do that. So this is vital to listen to your input, so that we can understand, because we want to collectively move together as a community, and all of us being together. That's the way it's going to work, because nobody else is coming. We all we got, and we got to take care of us. But the people are coming, and we got to be prepared for it. And the infrastructure is a big part of that. And it ain't.
Thank you. Any other question, comment?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that I agree with just about everything everybody said in here. I grew up in eastern Burke County, born and raised down there. And God willing, I hope to be back down there by Christmas this year at my grandmother's home in George Hildebrand. Went to school at East Burke, and I know about the traffic problems. I worked down there for 20-some years as a teacher and a principal, and it's not good, not a good situation. I agree. But I guess my basic instinct is politically and morally, I'm a Barry Goldwater. For those of you that don't know who that is, go back and research him. But I'm a Barry Goldwater, Ronald Reagan Republican, and I just have a real hard time telling a person they can't do something with their land that they want to do with it, now unless they're going to put a dead burned nuclear waste dump in there or something like that. I just wanted to make that clear.
Other question, comment?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to also point out too, we had a discussion earlier about the declining ADM in our school system. We have East Burke Middle School, and I reached out and inquired, and these are not exact to the number of students, but we have East Burke Middle School that was built to house 800 to 850 students, and currently we're around 800 or 584. East Burke High School was built to house 1,600 students, and we're currently at 796. So we definitely need some growth in that area to make sure that we sustain our schools. And I appreciate Commissioner Barrier's due diligence in this traffic study information. And I drive that road every day. I live in George Hildebrand, and I come out Miller Bridge Road, and I go through Eichard, the intersection, and it is tight. There's a lot of traffic there. Do I think that the exit off of Shapps Grove Church Road would help? Absolutely. If they're not taking a kid to school, they can exit there, hang a left, and be out at the interstate in just about the same amount of time. But I just feel like if we're going to move forward and we're going to address the issue of declining ADM, I know that the Sheriff's Department's coverage was mentioned earlier. I think based on things that our sheriff's been able to do and that we've been able to help with, I think they're probably as close to full staff as they've ever been, probably in the last 2 decades. And the way that continues to be the case is that we have to grow our tax base. And in order to grow our tax base, that means we need people to live here. We need capital investments made in our county. If every one of these sold for $250,000, based on our current tax rate, we're looking at around $180,000 in additional revenue that would come into our county, not counting the economic impact of all of those folks that live here, not counting the increased ADM in our schools. I just feel like in order to move forward, we've got to do something. And I don't think everybody's going to agree with what we have to do. But I can promise you that we've looked at nearly all factors other than emotional and personal that you can possibly look at when it comes to development like this and the conditional zoning. I do know that there is a market for this, and I would much rather see this than I would a bunch of apartment buildings. I want it to be buildings. I want it to be properties that people own, that they're proud of, that they want to raise their family in. So with all that said, I'm in support of this rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Any other comment? All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion, gentlemen.
Are we looking at Not the black and white one,
Yeah.
this one. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2026-05 as it relates to ZMA 2026-01 to rezone a 61 acre parcel located at 3637 Millbridge Road, Conley Springs, NC PN 2762-73-5247, from industrial to planned residential mixed use conditional PRMU-CD to adjust to the future land use map and to residential infill for this parcel. The board finds that the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan supports residential development and strategies that address housing needs in Burke County. The PRMU/CD district allows for flexibility in site design, including clustering of development to better manage uses and transition between land uses. Further, the board finds that this development is a candidate for conditional zoning as it allows for clustering of development and the management of uses on a parcel in a manner not typically permitted by conditional zoning, while maintaining or enhancing the goals of the ordinance. And with mutually agreed on appropriate screening adjacent to the industrial property.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. All right, this brings us to item number 2, also from Community Development. Valdez Bluffs Development Agreement, public hearing at 6 p.m. This will be presented by our county manager, Mr. Epler.
Well, I think we've spent a tremendous amount of time talking about population, ADM, housing need. Appreciate Commissioner Barrier referencing the housing study from 2023. At your last meeting, you approved the terms and conditions of a local development agreement that would be a joint partnership between Burke County and the town of Valdez for a future housing development called Valdez Bluffs. There's about 100 acres adjacent to Drone High School that's owned by Natural Land Alliance. It's a nonprofit corporation who's owned that for some time, that have been working for some number of years with the town on a sewer lift station that essentially helps deal with the topography associated with that piece of property. We've noticed this public hearing as a reminder that the plat allows for up to 140 homes. There's a development agreement that we've worked with council to develop that breaks that down in phases. Phase 1 is 27 homes. The average value of these homes are about $350,000. In order to construct this pump station, the town of Valdez has already secured an $800,000 state grant that has to be used for that project on that property. In the time gap between receiving that grant in 2021 and 2023, 2024, when Chairman Britton and I first engaged, the price of the lift station essentially doubled. So it's a $1.6 million upgrade now. So the remaining $800,000 gap, the proposal is to split that with the town of Valdez. They would pay $400,000. The county would pay $400,000. I would point out that the county's $400,000 does not include any local money, no property tax. It too is a state-directed grant from the North Carolina General Assembly. We have $3.2 million that can only be used for municipal grants for water sewer infrastructure development to create housing. It's all it can be used for. This will be the first project of hopefully several to come, with the goal of inducing housing, helping housing develop in places that it otherwise would not. The development agreement outlines that the developer will provide roads, curb and guttering, all of the civil site, horizontal development. The town of Valdez will provide the sewer pump station. Our only responsibility with the county is to utilize this grant funding to pay half of that sewer lift station. In the event that the developer does not perform those vertical builds, within a 3-year period of the sewer availability date. There are clawback liquidated damages at about $14,000 per delivered unit. So over 27 homes, that would be the full reimbursement for town and the county. That'll be secured by a deed of trust. So if you all were to approve the development agreement before it would be begin to be executed, we would have to work with the county attorney's office and the town attorney to do a clean title search, make sure there are no liens. We've of course asked the property owner if there's any liens, and we've been told no, but we didn't want to invest legal money into a title search until we got the direction from this board. So we would have to first do that. Then we would have to make sure that the owner is the corporate officer that has the authority to enter into a binding agreement. And then, obviously we would have a property appraisal, and we would encumber, with a deed of trust, enough of the residual acreage that fully covers any exposure from the county and the town, and essentially eliminates all financial risk or exposure. We would have the ability to foreclose on the remaining residual property to cover our investment using that state grant. So ultimately, phase 1 is 27 homes. The total plat is 140. The deed of trust will be recorded in the Register of Deeds office. It would be binding. That would be following an appraisal and a title search. And the developer believes that they can be started as early as July. So happy to answer any questions, ma'am, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Gentlemen, any questions on this item? All right, seeing here none, at this time, I will open a public hearing. Anyone here to speak on this item tonight? Ms. Butterworth?
So, thank you. Susan South, Orchid Lane. So I support the housing. I've said this before, but what I do not support is building out infrastructure that doesn't benefit the town of Valdez. I mean, we know that they're underwater by 30 million on their sewer. That's a transparent number that they throw out there all the time. Why would we build when we know that there's a possible data center that's trying to get in there and gobble up the water? How are you going to recover this if it fails? You know, you've got your insurances to cover. You can go back and claw back, but are you going to take over the water system? That's what I really would like for you to do, is consider a freeze on this the housing building until we have effectively managed our water and sewer. We have not done that. A Valdez water customer like myself that's on Triple Community pays $67 for 3,000 gallons. Now you guys sell it for $6.75, and it's going to go to $7, which is like 1/3 of the cost. So as a homeowner, I have to pay for this infrastructure that you're doing for these homes. And then I have to pay for my own septic system in my home. And then I have to pay the highest water bill possible in Burke County because Valdez is in the hole, $30 million for their septic system more than anything, which I don't get those services. So I would just like to say, why are we moving off of bringing businesses in here when you can actually retain a lot more money if they do well in business? You could get a lot more money off of that than the few hundred houses that you may have in there that you are paying money to build on a failing infrastructure. We all know it's failing, but it's the elephant in the room. Nobody's dealing with it. Nobody is dealing with it. Or I would have heard something about that. Now you're doing very good on the 1,200 or 1,300 homes that you manage. I'm talking about the rest of us, the other 32,000 or 4,000 homes that don't have the infrastructure that we all pay for as homeowners in Burke County. So I just don't think it's fair to us to have to pay for this infrastructure when we know that the system is not stable. If Valdez was stable, then they wouldn't have had township meetings like they had today. And again, I encourage you to go and watch the whole meeting, please. They're not getting reports from their department heads, so therefore they don't know what's going on. They can't get even they paid for a report for payroll, a wage report, I imagine. They never even got the results from that. They got one page. This is the stuff that's going on down there that you guys want to build on top of. I think you really should take a look at what's going on in Valdez, because you are wanting to build on top of that, and I don't think it's trustworthy. I just don't. So again, I would like to see you put a freeze on housing growth until we have fortified our water sewer system in Burke County. We have some major calamities coming at us. 33,000 more gallons Mecklenburg County wants. They could pull that number at any day, tomorrow, as a matter of fact. It could happen. The data center, we don't even know what that might entail. And I would also like to encourage you guys to entertain the idea of putting a moratorium on data centers and lithium battery companies in Burke County. I would also like to encourage every single municipality in this county to entertain a moratorium on data centers, because we don't have the infrastructure to support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cleveland. Anyone else to speak to this matter? All right, seeing here none, I'll close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the execution of a development agreement between Burke County, the town of Valdez, and the Natural Land Alliance, Incorporated, subject to any final revisions by the county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. It's 5-0, Madam Clerk. All right. This brings us to item number 8, informal public comments tonight. And I'll begin with speakers Francis Payne. Francis Payne.
Good evening at a late hour, and thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I know you've become very familiar with my case, and first and foremost, I thank you for your support. It was about the money, but more than the money, it was about making a wrong right. And you did that, and you have my support in that. I'm here now asking for review and procedures, standard operating procedures for Burke County Tax Assessment Office. This is the only way that I feel that the citizens of Burke County can ensure the integrity and the mission of the Tax Assessment Office. I sincerely hope and recommend that in addition to the review, that you add in addition to the current letters that sent out to the homeowners in your February listings, that you add a copy of the summary of the county real estate property assessment. It's online, not so easily accessible to the average citizen, but it's available. But if you put this in with your tax assessment of residential homes, it will at least give the resident and the homeowner something to correspond what the value of their home really is. When you send a letter out, this is a copy of my letter my wife and I received. On there it says, this is the assessed value of your home. And I think like most counties, it's valued at 80% of the property, appropriately so. However, it gives you nothing for reference. In other words, I'll just take a generic. If you send me a letter and you tell me my property is worth $500,000, and I think it's worth $500,000, then it's worth $500,000. I've got nothing to correlate or correspond or reference that to. However, if you send me a copy of this and you tell me my property has got 2,500 square feet, and I know the value of a square footage of a home, I got something to correlate it to. It's not a number that, look, I'm sure it's all done in good faith. However, it's not a number that I have nothing to correspond it to. Thirdly, I think the county tax assessor should complete the final tax assessment of new construction only after a certificate of occupancy letter is issued. In doing so, this will ensure construction and county codes have been met, and then there's no error for a judgment call, as was explained to me in my case. I'm not sure if I'm a one-off, if I'm the only one in this instance. However, it took me a lot of homework and research to find out. I would highly recommend that a review, an audit is done of the tax assessment office to ensure that others have not been unduly assessed. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Ms. Butterworth. Did we lose Ms. Butterworth? Okay. Evan Costner.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Evan Costner, and I am speaking on behalf of Blue Ridge Liberation, an animal hoarding case in Burke County. As Executive Director of Cotton Branch Refuge Project in South Carolina, I am here because this matter is no longer about animal neglect. It is about oversight, conduct, evidence handling, and whether animal control is functioning as the law demands. More than 200 animals were connected to the perpetrator's case. These animals required emergency intervention, vet care, quarantine, transport, and long-term placement because the systems responsible for preventing this suffering failed before we arrived. We did not create this crisis, nor allow these animals to deteriorate. Hurricane Helene did not create this crisis. We did not fail to preserve records, fail to complete reports, or fail to refer evidence for legal review. That responsibility belongs directly to animal control. When we became involved, we encountered animals in severe medical duress. One animal, Susie Q, was bleeding, consumed by infection, with open wounds that clearly did not happen overnight. She was taken to the vet hospital, and within days, she died. This is not a minor animal welfare issue or a misunderstanding. This is prolonged suffering. North Carolina state law is the legal foundation here and recognizes animal cruelty as a criminal matter. Cruelty can include depriving an animal of necessary sustenance and allowing neglect that causes unjustifiable pain, suffering, or death. That happened here. Burke County gives animal control the responsibility to investigate reported or observed animal abuse, cruelty, or neglect, make written reports, and refer cases for prosecution. We understand that concerns about this property existed long before 2026, and that people previously who lived there documented concerns about and reported neglect for humans and animals. And repeat, humans and animals. If those records exist, produce them. We know the law and the process, and we know a failure to act when we see one. Everyone needs to know when animal control was first contacted, what was reported, who received those reports, what investigation occurred, what follow-up was completed, and why this continued until more than 200 animals were connected to this case. We carry the burden of rescue. Burke County must now carry the burden of accountability. I am not asking this board to determine guilt or prosecute anyone. I'm only asking you to do what's within your authority. Provide oversight of a county agency and require answers and demand a formal review. If Burke County allows this case to disappear, the message is unmistakable. Hundreds of animals can suffer, animals can die, we clean up the mess, and the county can simply move on as if nothing happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Joshua Carpenter.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joshua Carpenter. I am a director of Cotton Branch Refuge Project in South Carolina, and I'm here representing the coalition behind the response to this aforementioned animal hoarding case in Burke County. What we found was not ambiguous. I'm going to move that so I don't break it. What we found was not ambiguous. Animals were at death's door. Some did not survive, even after immediate medical intervention. There are multiple witness accounts of animal neglect on the property. At Cotton Branch, we have worked hoarding cases across the country, across the Southeast, and in every one of those cases, except what we are seeing here in Burke County, Animal Control acted. Animal Control brought charges, they were filed, and accountability followed. We're not seeing that here. That is the standard. In Burke County, none of that has happened. We have only heard from an unnamed official that no charges would be filed, with no explanation given as to what evidence was reviewed, who reviewed it, or why this case has not moved forward. That is not accountability, it's not transparency, and it's not a legal process the people of Burke County in North Carolina can trust. 100% of the burden has rested on us. Countless volunteer hours spent providing care, coordinating transport, arranging vet care, finding homes, cleaning up a situation that Animal Control had both the authority and evidence to address. Over $160,000 spent so far, and that number is growing daily to clean this up. We can provide evidence from the property, vet records documenting the neglect, and witness accounts. We're also asking for transparency around potential conflicts of interest, as there have been allegations of possible personal connections between the perpetrator, her family, and Animal Control personnel. We are not presenting those allegations as proven facts tonight, but we are saying that they should be reviewed through the proper county process so they can either be proven or put to rest. The data is clear. Without accountability, animals suffer, rescues return, and this cycle continues over and over again. When people like this perpetrator are allowed to acquire more animals, the next crisis is not a question of if, it is a question of when. What we are asking you is simple: for a full investigation and the evidence to move through the proper legal channels, for this board to require Animal Control to provide the complete case file to the appropriate law enforcement authority for review. We believe this, along with the evidence we've collected, will lead to charges against the perpetrator, and then the DA should review and prosecute the case through the proper legal process. There also must be consequences if the investigation shows county employees failed in their duties. Animals suffered, some died. They deserve justice. We need you all to have the courage to stand up and meet this moment head on with us in demanding accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Andrea Cermelli.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Cermelli, and I'm the Director of Operations at Animal Haven of Asheville in Asheville, North Carolina. We're a local farm sanctuary, and alongside a few fellow teammates, I was among the first on the scene to begin inventorying the animals at Harley June and starting the process of feeding and watering them. I've previously deployed with the ASPCA on cruelty and disaster cases, and I can honestly say that this was one of the most overwhelming situations that I've personally witnessed. The house itself was deplorable. 3-month-old piglets were actively breeding inside the living room, and other animals were hiding beneath piles of garbage and debris throughout the home. Animals were living in their own filth, both inside and outside, without clean access to water or adequate food. Most were starving, as evidenced by their skeletal appearance, and many had a look of despair, despite still being friendly and approachable. What we encountered was not simply overcrowding. It was suffering on a massive scale. These animals were living in conditions that no living being should endure: famished, neglected, frightened, and entirely dependent on humans who failed them. At one point, several dogs escaped the house through a broken window. They were not safe around birds, and we watched in horror as a rooster was viciously attacked. I rushed him to Foothills Animal Hospital, where he was humanely euthanized due to the severity of his injuries, while my teammates worked to try to secure the dogs back inside the filthy home. These are things you do not forget. The reason we're speaking up today is because these animals don't have voices of their own. They were not safe around, the reason we're speaking up today is because these animals do not have voices of their own. Accountability matters because without it, this cycle continues. Good intentions alone are not enough to justify taking in and keeping animals when someone no longer has the physical, emotional, or financial ability to properly care for them. This is why a full investigation is necessary. Compassion without accountability helps no one, especially the animals. Allowing someone to simply move on and begin hoarding animals again puts future animals at risk of suffering the same exact dim fate. Animal hoarding is not rescue. It's not sanctuary. And if we truly care about animal welfare, we must be willing to protect animals not only from cruelty, but from the dangerous neglect that's disguised as care. These animals deserved better. And they now deserve us to speak up and take action before it's too late once again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Millie. Gary Mullins.
Hi, I'm Gary Mullins, the father of Amy Mullins, the people you're talking about. I believe an investigation is in order to find out what led up to and what caused, and the fact that my daughter is agoraphobic, has anxiety, and has deep depression from things that had occurred over the last year. So she should be, says she is accountable for it. She is getting her health taken care of. She is seeing the psychiatrist. She's gone to counseling. She's doing everything she needs to do. She's in a better place. She accepts the responsibility for the fact that this occurred, but it also has to be considered her mental state and the pressure that was put on her by other people, and that made her go into depression. And the people that continue to put on the pressure on someone that has a mental illness is unexcusable. It's evil. They get pleasure out of it. I see it, I live with it, and I know who they are. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Anyone else to speak to this matter tonight? Or to public comment, rather? Yes, ma'am.
This is a copy of an email I had sent to you, Mr. Upley. Can I bring it to you in January or to who? My name is Katrie Wilson. I've known Amy Mullins for many years, and her mother and her nephews. And Amy does have some issues. She does. And she's currently facing investigation of elder abuse, and the children were taken away for child abuse. So she does have issues. But for years, she has had a support system of people saying, stop taking animals. Agoraphobic. I've gone with her on lots of rides to go rescue pigs. She had no problem with that. She was going to rescue a pig. She didn't have agoraphobia all of a sudden. And there's other people that can attest to that. What she did was not normal. It's not normal, you know. And but she's responsible. You can't blame, oh, I couldn't go anywhere. Well, you don't have to always go get the pigs. People bring them to her, and she welcomed them in. The house was 6 inches in feces, a $500,000 house, which is now being condemned, and homeowners insurance will not pay for it. The home belongs to her mother, an elderly woman who lived downstairs and had no voice. Pig pee soaking through the floor and the ceiling collapsing. When we went in the hospital, she couldn't go home. Amy refused to clean it up. Amy opened and there's photos, there's evidence of all this. She opened up the attic. She opened up her mother's apartment downstairs and let the animals, over 100 pigs. There were 47 pregnant pigs that were picked up by the rescues. The babies had to be terminated. There was no place for them. Over 400 baby piglets would have been born in that place if I had not called the rescues. I reached out in email. I called animal control dozens of times. Please help. Not, hey, come prosecute this woman. Please help. Please help. Never heard anything. No one called me back. No one did a dang thing. And I was very upset. We have custody of the mother who's not doing well. She watched animals suffer. She watched them die. She told Amy, don't bring home any more animals. She watched a goat starve to death. It was horrific. I called animal control, said, this woman came walking her yard without getting attacked by these animals. Please help us. Did I get a response? No. No. Amy has no remorse for this. She has never apologized for this. She said, well, things just went south. The animals were removed because I reached out and friends reached out to animal control. And they talked to someone, I don't know who, but I reached out to the rescues and the rescues showed up. I said, come to this house and you're going to see this. You've never seen pictures like this. The adjuster that came says, I've seen horrific hoarding cases, but I've never seen anything like this in my life. We had to use snow shovels to scoop 6 inches of shit. That these little animals, the babies were living in, puppies, rabbits, chickens, pigs. Children lived in there. Children lived in there. None of the bathrooms are usable. Why not? Why not? Pigs damaged the water stuff. Damaged the HVAC because Amy didn't lock them up. She refused to put them up. Did she have help? Yes. She had help. She refused it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Anyone else for public comment? Yes.
My name is Kathy Watson. I hate public speaking, and I don't want to be here. I want to be home feeding my pigs because they're all probably trying to find me at the moment, but I drove 40 minutes to say this. I sent emails back on March 24th, and I said, several weeks ago, I was asked to assist with a hoarding case in Morganton. For background, I have a private animal sanctuary in Rutherford County. I've been rescuing animals for over 30 years. I had seen pictures prior to my arrival on site, but nothing could prepare me for the filthy conditions throughout the property and especially in the house. This is my 5th hoarding case cleanup in 6 years, one of them also in Morganton, and by far the worst. There were pigs throughout the property and in the house. The odor in the house was overwhelming. Masks were ineffective. Babies and moms were living in feces-filled rooms. Dogs and pigs were running between the upstairs and downstairs. All the floors were totally covered in dog and pig feces and urine. Outside, there were many emaciated pigs, some mere skeletons, trying to eat as food was provided, but they were being forced out by bigger pigs. These pigs had clearly been suffering for a very long time. Mange and lice were rampant among them. Pregnant females too young to be delivering safely were also present. I assisted many other rescues in removing the pigs from the property over that next weekend. I visited Animal Control on Tuesday, March 17th to inquire about abuse charges against Amy Mullins for the clearly emaciated, ill, and dying pigs and spoke with Director Caitlin Settlemeyer. She informed me there would not be charges because Amy had called Animal Control herself. She would not discuss it at that time, but said we could set up a meeting the following Tuesday, and that a Zoom meeting could also be planned for those unable to attend. March 18th, I sent her an email asking about 11:30 meeting on 11:30 meeting the following Tuesday. March 19th, I had not received a response, so I called and left her a message as she was on a retreat. March 20th, still no response, so I called again left a message. Finally, that afternoon, I received an email stating that a meeting would not be scheduled because the case was considered closed. Claims have been made that this is the result of Hurricane Helene destroying the property. Hurricane Helene was 18 months ago. Numerous rescues came to assist with removing trees, fixing fences, providing supplies, including a generator, gave donations of money. This assistance was provided for at least 3 months. Since that time, help offered was turned away as not being needed. Neither the home nor the barn was destroyed. An article was published in the paper media March 21st that shows the abysmal ignorance of those responsible for the safety and well-being of the defenseless animals in your county. The comment that pigs were thriving in feces shows appalling willful blindness about proper animal care. Is this the stance animal control takes? Ms. Settlemeyer informed me she had a house pig. Is her pig thriving in feces in her house as well? Does public information officer Chris White have pigs living in filth and covered in parasites? I was told by Ms. Settlemeyer that charges were not filed because Amy had turned herself in. If I came in and said I just murdered someone and I was turning myself in, would charges not be filed? I've been told by several people that Amy didn't turn herself in. Other people did. And she called after that because she knew she'd be in trouble. As the brand new shelter opens, the calls for justice for suffering pigs goes unanswered. Will that continue to be the stance animal control takes? Will pigs laying dying, covered in wounds, parasites, infections, and sperm from unaltered males mounting them as they lay helpless not be considered animal cruelty? Would you want any of your family members living that as Amy's family had to? And if you actually have animals and care about them, would you approve of them living in these conditions?
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Anyone else to speak in public comment? All right, seeing here none, we'll close public comment at this time. This will bring us to item number 9, consent agenda. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fairly lengthy consent agenda. Bear with me as I work through it. Item 1 is from the Burke County Public Schools financial data for the period ending March 31, 2026. Item 2 is from our clerk, and this is appointments to the Adult Care Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee. Item 3 also from the clerk's office, appointment removal from the Child Protection and Child Fatality Prevention Team. Item number 4, excuse me, reappointments to the East Burke Senior Center Advisory Council. Item number 5 is approving the audit contract with Thompson Price Scott Adams for fiscal year 2027. Item 6 is the application for our public school capital funds drawdown annual application. Item 7 is the lease for the Adult Corrections Office, 1 year. Item number 8 is from the County Manager's Office, consideration for approval of budget amendment number 30, $369,328. Item number 9, budget amendment number 31 for $20,000. Item number 10 is for JCPC, which is their annual spend plan that was presented for the upcoming fiscal year. Item 11 is Q1 of March 31st, 2026 financial data for our TDA. And finally, for consideration is item number 12 from Western Piedmont Community College, which is the presentation of their March 31, 2026 quarter end financial data. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. These items are being reviewed at our pre-agenda meeting. Any question on these items? Seeing here none, all those, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. This brings us to item number 10, items for decision. First item comes from our clerk tonight, appointments, reappointments, and removals to the LEPC. This will be presented by our clerk tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This has several moving pieces, so I will try and be as brief as possible. Alan Glines and Spring Williams Bird has retired. Damon Pollard is the recommended replacement for Spring Williams Bird. We're requesting the removal of Brooke Jarlson and April Pope due to lack of attendance, which violates Burke County Ordinance Section 2-92. Jonathan Heflin and Bradley Hinton are the recommended replacements. Further, Jeffrey McDaniel no longer meets the criteria for seat number 15 due to change in employment. Therefore, we are requesting his removal, and we are requesting that Beth Anderson be reassigned from seat number 16 to seat number 15, Facility Emergency Planning, as her employment with SAF meets the qualifications for that seat. Both Jonathan Heflin and Patty Nelson would need a residency waiver exception to Burke County Code of Ordinance 2-88.
All right, thank you, Kat. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. Any questions on any of these items before we take the votes? Seeing here none on the first item, the removal of Alan Glines, Brooke Jarlson, Jeffrey McDaniel, April Pope, and Spring Williams Bird from the local emergency planning committee, and thank them for their service. All those in favor of that, please signify by the uplifted hand as I make the motion. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Second item to reappoint Israel Gibson to the LEPC seat number 3 for the fire service, and Joshua Mashburn seat number 12 for Department of Transportation to the local emergency planning committee to complete the remainder of 3-year term ending January 31, 2029. As I make that motion, all those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Next item, motion to reassign Beth Anderson from seat number 16 to seat number 15 and reappoint her to complete the remainder of a 3-year term ending January 31, 2029. If you're in favor of that motion, please signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Next, to appoint Jonathan Heflin to seat number 6, Environmental Health, Bradley Hinton to seat number 9 as a citizen, and Damon Pollard to seat number 13 with Agriculture to the local emergency planning committee to complete the remainder of a 3-year term ending January 31, 2029. If you're in favor of that motion, please signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Now,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, seat number 18 is an at-large seat. Patty Nelson is the current holder of that seat. She is willing to serve another term. We also have additional applications on file for Joshua Blankenship, Bradley Hinton, Hannah Houston, and Michael Walton.
all right, gentlemen, you've heard the information presented by our clerk. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to reappoint Patty Nelson to the local emergency planning committee, seat number 18 at large, to complete a 3-year term ending 31 January 2029.
If you're in favor of that motion, signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. All right. Last motion to grant an exception to the residency requirements set forth to Section 288A of the Burke County Code for any applicant appointed to the local emergency planning committee at the May 18, 2026 regular meeting who does not reside within Burke County based upon the board's determination that such appointment serves the best interest of the county due to the applicant's professional qualifications, experience, or affiliation relevant to the committee's work. Any question on that motion or consideration? If you agree to such, please indicate by your uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. As you recall, though it's been a long time, we took item number 2 off the agenda. That'll bring us to item number 3. County Manager consideration of resolution adopting a policy on zero-based budgeting. Mr. Manager.
Resolution's included in your packet. It's a recommendation from Commissioner Barrier. Happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Any question on this item?
Has that been our practice? I mean, it has been our practice for the last 3 years.
This will be our 4th budget.
Yes. Okay, this memorializes that and makes it I'm good with that.
All those, are you making that a motion, Mr.?
No, I'll let Brian make it.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2026-14 as presented.
All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Item number 4, also from the manager, approval of budget amendment number 32 for $75,000.
Yes, sir. We've had several ambulances that are in need of repair, and the repair line inside the EMS department is approaching as we approach the end of the year. Doesn't have enough resources, so this is moving future set aside capital and designated capital back to EMS to get those ambulances repaired.
Any question on this item? Seeing, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. And now we come to items 5 and 6 on decision, and now Marina is going to get the award for hanging out for the most. Item number 5, tax collection report for period ending April 30th, 2026, presented by our interim tax administrator, Ms. Nelson. Ms. Nelson, thank you for your patience tonight, and we'll hear you gladly.
Well, good evening. I wanted to go over the period ending report through April 30th, 2026. The year-to-date revenue collection for current year taxes to date is $59,581,580, which is 98% of budget. Discounts were $346,436. Delinquent taxes, $684,130, which is 98% of budget. Interest and fees was $444,720, which was 135% of budget. The 2025-26 year-to-date levy for property taxes, the amount collected was $54,325,948. Motor vehicles, $5,255,632. Fire tax was $6,333,938.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Gentlemen, you've heard this report. Any questions on this item? Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the tax collection report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0, Madam Clerk. Item number 6, tax release and refund report. Ms. Nelson.
The report amount was $20,235.20. Rebuild amount $15,059.75. Net release was $5,175.45. And the refund amount for VTS was $1,637.11.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Any question on this item? Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the tax release and refund report as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Stroud. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. All right, this brings us to item 11, reports and comments. Gentlemen, I'll remind you that May 19th, Burke County Annual Recovery Summit at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This will be held at Western Piedmont Community College. I would encourage those residents and any folks that would like to hear that information concerning our opioid response and how things are going with that whole project to please come be a part of that summit on May the 19th. Our Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting will be at 3 o'clock on June the 1st. Our regular meeting at on June the 15th at 6 p.m. I would note the Governor Stein has proclaimed May the 20th as Emergency Medical Services for Children Day. Children are the future and have different EMS needs than adults, and he encourages emergency care providers to have the necessary training to ensure children's well-being. Also, a reminder to our youth groups that if you are interested in coming and leading in our pledge, we'd love to have you come and do that at our commission meetings. We would encourage you to sign up through our website or through our clerk. She would be glad to assist you. as well as those religious leaders who would be interested in delivering the invocation to our Board of Commissioners meetings. Please sign up with our clerk for that. With that, we'll move to item number 12, vacancy announcements. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, can I interject something here before she does that? I guess from the county manager, the county, this for the public that's watching, the county offices and the convenience centers for Memorial Day weekend, what will the schedule be?
I don't know. I'll find out. I'm not sure. Mark stepped out.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. I'll find out and let you know that.
And I always find it helpful if our public information officer could put that information out as a PIO.
Storms right now, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Well, we will certainly do a social media release and it'll be on the website. I don't know if we're open half day or open normal, but I expect that we're open some. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to just real quickly extend my gratitude to the county manager and all the department heads for this budget that they presented. We've been in budget overload on our side, just listening to it for the last month and a half or 2 months. I can't imagine what it's been like on their side of the fence. So I just wanted to say I'm grateful for that.
I just wish he'd quit giving us the Reader's Digest condensed version and give us the full novel next time.
Mr. Vice Chairman Smith, according to the website, the landfill will be closed Memorial Day weekend.
Landfill is closed.
Saturday and Monday.
Yes. No, just, Monday, May 25th.
What about the convenience site? See anything there?
Usually if both are closed, it states both are closed. This time it just says the landfill. So I feel pretty confident it's landfill.
Okay. All right.
We'll make sure we do good promotional advertising this week.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll hear vacancy announcements. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have several vacancies. The Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, we've got a vacancy on the Burke America 250 NC Committee for the Burke Arts Council representative. The Public Health Advisory Board has a vacancy for a veterinarian. The Burke Senior Center Advisory Council also has a vacancy. The Dangerous Dog Appeals Board also has a vacancy for a veterinarian. We've got Drexel Planning Board, ETJ members and alternate. The Hickory Regional Planning Commission, the Local Emergency Planning Committee has a media seat that's been vacant for quite some time. Mike has already left, but maybe she would be interested in that. She just recently went through our Citizens Academy. And then our Partners Health Management Human Rights Committee has several vacancies.
All right. Thank you, Kat, for those vacancies. And we, as always, would encourage citizens to take a look at those. And if you can help in any way on any of those vacancies, please feel free to contact our board clerk, or you can sign up on our website or find the application at our website. Gentlemen, at this time, I'll go around the board here. Mr. Attorney, anything from you tonight, sir?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Stroud.
Yeah, I think we ought to get a canteen in here for breaks and hot dogs and throw peanuts at each other when they get starving. No, I love y'all, America 250. Excited about that. Get excited. We could be in Daniel Boone right now running through the woods, man. Look at us, man. We worry about stuff we shouldn't even worry about.
Thank you, Commissioner Stroud. Mr. Burns?
Nothing further.
Mr. Manager? Mr. Vice Chair?
Just remember all of our servicemen and women that gave their lives this weekend for our country, Memorial Day.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Nothing, sir.
Ms. Morgan?
Sure.
Okay, Madam Cat.
Yes, just for clarity of the record, I know we had a draft policy attached to that resolution for the zero-based budgeting. It did not have a fiscal year for the effective date. I assume that since we've got the recommended budget for fiscal year 27, that this would be effective fiscal year 28.
I would assume it's effective now, so 26, 27. It was developed under that practice, so I think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have no further comments tonight. Appreciate everyone's endurance for the meeting. Thank you for being here, and have a safe rest of your week and Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, I'm gonna get there.
Get there.
He's wanting to stay here with us.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Mr. Burns. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Thank you very much.